Chapter 194. Humph! Knowing that the two sages of the West would not intervene, Zenuanzi snorted. He put away Red Cloud's origin and many relics and rushed to Longevity Mountain. "Fellow Taoist, please wait!" At this time, a figure whose face could not be seen clearly and whose whole body was covered in divine light walked out of the void and stopped Zenuanzi. Who is this fellow Taoist who is joking with poor Wei and blocking her way? Zenuanzi could not recognize the person after looking at him for a while, and could not help but ask. The person's breath was covered by the divine light and did not leak out at all. Even his voice was made by Dharma power. Obviously, he did not want to reveal his identity. "Fellow Taoist, poor Wei did not come here with malice. I just want to borrow the 99 soul-scattering gourd to take a look. Fellow Taoist, please do me a favor." The man first bowed to Zenuanzi and then said leisurely, "You." Hearing this, Zenuanzi flew into a rage. He pointed at the man and said word by word, "What do you want? Do you really think that poor Wei is easy to bully?" At the end, the voice was almost like a roar. With monstrous anger, it tore through the void and suppressed the other party. The 99 soul-scattering gourd was a supreme grade, primordial spiritual treasure, and also Red Cloud's protective treasure. This treasure was connected to Red Cloud's life. After Red Cloud's death, it might contain a trace of his true spirit, which was one of the things he relied on for his resurrection. What did this person want to do by borrowing this treasure? Should he take this opportunity to stop Red Cloud's resurrection and delay his return? Thinking of this, Zenuanzi was furious. After a roar, he took out the Earth Book and was about to hit the other party. "Fellow Taoist, you misunderstood. Poor Wei has no malice toward Red Cloud. I just want to take a look at the 99 soul-scattering gourd to confirm whether Hongming's purple chi is hidden in this treasure. Now that Red Cloud has fallen into a deep sleep, the Hongming's purple chi is no longer useful. Why don't we take this treasure out and help poor Wei and other fellow Taoists? In the future, when we have achieved something, we will kill Mingi and Kuenping to avenge Red Cloud." Seeing that Zenuanzi was suddenly furious, the person knew that there must be a misunderstanding. He quickly avoided Zenuanzi's attack and explained himself. At the same time, as soon as the voice fell, dozens of huge divine thoughts suddenly appeared in the void and surrounded Jin Yuanzi. The threat was self-evident. Taoist Red Cloud had died, and the primordial violet vapor had disappeared. Some people believed that the item had been taken away by Mingi, while others believed that the item was still here in the 99 soul dissipation gourd. That was why there was this scene. Compared to the importance of the primordial violet vapor, offending Zenuanzi was nothing. Moreover, dozens of people attacked together. Even if Zenuanzi wanted to argue, he had to think twice. "Well, since you want to see it, poor Wei will show it to you." Zenuanzi was furious, but he did not even call them fellow Taoists. It was true that no one could keep a good temper when threatened by dozens of acquaintances. Zenuanzi did not explode on the spot, not because he had a good temper, but because he could not defeat the group of people in front of him. If not, Zenuanzi would definitely teach them a lesson and let them know what it meant to be an ancestor of Earth Immortals. However, he was not happy to be forced. Zenuanzi took out a fiery red gourd from his arms and pulled out the cork. Suddenly, endless red sand gushed out and swept over millions of miles. "Ah, damn it, it's the soul-scattering sand." Zenuanzi was so fast that before anyone could react, their soul-scattering divine thoughts were shrouded by the endless red sand and kept melting. Only the person who came in person held up the protective divine light and blocked all the red sand, so he was not hurt. Taking this opportunity, everyone looked at the inside of the soul-scattering gourd, looking for traces of the Hongmeng purple chi. Not here. It seems that the Hongmeng purple chi should be taken by Mingi. However, after a while, everyone frowned and withdrew their soul-scattering divine thoughts. The Hongmeng purple chi was not in the soul-scattering gourd. Let's go. Immediately, several people looked at each other and chased after Mingi without hesitation. Fellow Taoist, why don't you make way? Zhen Yuanzi raised the soul-scattering gourd in his hand and said to the person in front of him, Fellow Taoist, goodbye. Glancing at the gourd in Zhen Yuanzi's hand, the person bowed and disappeared. It was no wonder that he was afraid. The soul-scattering gourd had a great origin and was extremely powerful. On Mount Buzhou, there was a connate gourd vine, which was one of the top 10 connate spiritual roots in the untainted land. This spiritual root was extraordinary and gave birth to a total of 9 powerful numinous treasures. Since the untainted land was created, it had been bathing in Panga's aura, feeling the mysteries of the great Tao and growing continuously. Gradually, 7 connate gourds were born. After Tao Ancestor Hongjuan's first Tao lecture, the 7 gourds were completely mature and attracted 7 fated people. The 3 pure ones, Nuwa, Dijun, Tai, and Hongyan. The first gourd to mature was a purple gold gourd, which contained the qi of yin and yang. It could shrink people and hold things, turning them into thick water in a short time. It was obtained by Taoist Tai Ching and refined into a purple gold gourd to store elixirs. The second gourd was black and contained the qi of chaos. It was obtained by Taoist Yuqing and refined into a chaos gourd, which could evolve into a world with boundless power. The third gourd was yellow and contained the power of water and fire. It was obtained by Taoist Shangqing and refined into a water fire gourd, which could produce 2 water fire chilants to fight against enemies with great power. The fourth was a green gourd, which was obtained by Nuwa and refined into a demon refining gourd, which could seize the vitality of all living beings to obtain the qi of creation. The fifth was a green gourd, which was obtained by Dijun and refined into a demon summoning banner, which contained the true spirits of thousands of demons and commanded billions of demons. The sixth was a white gourd, which fell into the hands of the Donghuang Tai. It was infused with connate murderous aura and refined into the immortal slaying gourd. Under a ray of light, countless mighty figures of the untainted land were killed. The seventh gourd was 3 feet and 3 inches in size. It was a fiery red and crystalline gourd, a treasure that grew from a connate spirit root. It was obtained by Hongyun and refined for countless years to become a connate spirit treasure. It contained endless red muslin that covered the sky and earth, which could disperse one's soul. The 7 gourds were all gone, and the connate gourd vine withered and died. At this moment, Nuwa's heart stirred. She went forward and took away the withered gourd vine and the soil that nurtured it. Later on, Nuwa used these 2 treasures to create humans. She used soil and mud, and with the gourd vine dipped in mud, humans were created. These 2 treasures had names: Man Creating Whip and 9 Heavens Living Soil. These 9 treasures were extraordinary to begin with. Because they were born in Mount Buzhou, they were tainted with a trace of Panga's aura, which made them even more mysterious. Coupled with the nurturing of their owner, their power could be said to be terrifying. Chapter 195. On the Sun Star, Dijun and Tai silently watched what was happening below. When they saw that the Hongmeng purple qi was not in the 99 soul-scattering gourd, Tai suddenly said to Dijun, "Brother, it seems that the Hongmeng purple qi is very likely to fall into Mingi's hands. Wait a moment, I will get it for you." Without waiting for Dijun's reply, Tai turned into a long rainbow and flew toward the Nether Blood Sea. It's a pity for Red Cloud Taoist. He was originally the first red cloud in the world. He was blessed with endless luck. However, in the Purple Cloud Palace, a single mistake caused him to be schemed against by Taoist Hongjun and fall to the end of his life. Hundreds of millions of years of bitter cultivation turned into flowing water in a day. In the extreme west, White Tiger Holy Beast sighed when he saw the death of Red Cloud Taoist. But this calm sigh was like a clap of thunder in Feng Zichen's ears, which shocked him so much that he was a little dazed. According to White Tiger Holy Beast's words, Red Cloud Taoist death was caused by Hongjun Taoist scheme. This was really a first-class secret in the world. If this matter was spread out, it would definitely cause a great disturbance. It would damage the dignity of Taoist ancestor. It would inevitably make a group of great mediums feel sad for the death of a rabbit. Today, Taoist ancestor tricked Red Cloud. It was possible that Taoist ancestor would not trick them tomorrow. Holy Master, I've been here long enough. I won't bother you anymore. Zichen, I'll leave first. This matter involved Taoist ancestor Hongjun. Although Feng Zichen was curious, he was worried about his life and did not dare to continue listening. He immediately planned to leave. Hongjun was the real #1 person in the untainted world. White Tiger Holy Beast's words were nothing. After all, he was powerful and Hongjun could not do anything to him. If Feng Zichen talked nonsense, no one knew what would happen next. You little brat, you're really a coward. What kind of person was the White Tiger Holy Beast? When he saw Feng Zichen in such a hurry to leave, he thought for a moment and understood the reason. He couldn't help but scold him with a smile. This place is one of the 4 levels of heaven and earth. Hongjun's hand can't reach here. He can't hear anything bad about him here. I'm telling you about this matter. Just treat it as a way to broaden your horizons, or as a lesson. Perhaps it was because it hadn't seen anyone for a long time. The White Tiger Sacred Beast was a little talkative today. It pulled Feng Zichen aside, wanting to tell him some secrets of heaven and earth. As you wish, Your Holiness. Feng Zichen replied with an embarrassed smile. Since the White Tiger Holy Beast had already put it this way, he couldn't very well refuse. In addition, he was really curious in his heart, so he decided to stay. Back then, when Taoist Hongjun established the Celestial Sect of Wonders, he prepared 6 same positions for the disciples of the sect. As such, including him, the Celestial Sect of Wonders has exactly 7 saints. This is called, number starts from 1, stands at 3, completes at 5, flourishes at 7, and stands at 9. According to Taoist Hongjun's original plan, the Celestial Sect of Wonders could continue to prosper with 7 saints in charge. But who knew that Taoist Hongyun would give away the saint positions that he had obtained to the 2 people from the Western sect? The Western sect is the base camp of the ancient demon sect. There are traces of the demon sect everywhere. The quintessential guide was more or less influenced by the demon sect when he came here. If you study the so-called Western mystical method carefully, you can see the shadow of many demon sect classics. In this case, how could Hongjun take a fancy to them? At this point, the White Tiger paused and said to Feng Zichen, "You have come into contact with the Western mystical method and the demon sect's mystical method. Think about it and see if there are any similarities between the 2. After hearing what the White Tiger Sacred Beast said, Feng Zichen counted carefully and found that it was really the case. The Western sect was good at bewitching people and had a deep understanding of the Tao of the heart. It was the same for the demon sect. The difference was that the demon sect's mystical method was activated with murderous aura. It looked sinister and terrifying. On the other hand, the Western mystical method was activated with spiritual energy. It looked magnificent, holy, and majestic. Its appearance was many times stronger than the demon sect's mystical method. However, once these appearances were removed, one would discover that the demon sect and the Western sect's mystical method were actually not much different. They were derived from the same system and had 2 different philosophies. Thinking of the battle between the demon sect and the Buddhist sect in the future, Feng Zichen seemed to have vaguely understood something. The battle of philosophies was the most terrifying. Heretics were often more deserving of death than heretics. Moreover, following this train of thought, Feng Zichen discovered more things that were wrong. In the East, there were many Khanate god fiends. They traveled in groups of 3 to 5. They either traveled around or sat down to discuss the Tao. They gathered the wisdom of everyone and opened up the Daluo Tao path, causing the Daluo Jingxian to emerge endlessly, resulting in the prosperity of the East today. As for the West, it had been affected by the ancient Immortal Fiend War and had long declined. There were very few Khanate god fiends that were born. The two of them, Zhu and Ti, had no one to teach them or discuss the Tao. They had only relied on the barren West to cultivate the Daluo Jingxian. They were not weaker than some of the top mighty figures in the East. Was that possible? If that was true, wouldn't it mean that the Khanate god fiends of the East were a bunch of trash? A large group of people had sat down to discuss the Tao for so many years and occupied the best grotto heavens. They were even better than the two of them who cultivated alone in the barren West. If they were not trash, what were they? Of course, the Khanate god fiends of the East could not be trash. According to this, the achievements of the two of them in the West naturally had something to do with the demon sect. Zhuan Ti and Zhuan Ti were born with the last destiny of the West. They were wholeheartedly oriented towards the West. Between the interests of the Xian sect and the interests of the West, they would definitely choose the West. They came to the Xian sect to learn the Tao without any intentions. They wanted to harm the East and benefit the West. With Hongjuan's cultivation level, how could he not see that? Therefore, before the lecture in the Purple Cloud Palace, he secretly used his methods to drag the two of them in the chaos with the intention of stopping them from entering the Purple Cloud Palace. Unfortunately, man proposes but God disposes. At the last moment, although they were late, the two of them still rushed to the Purple Cloud Palace. After that, Hongyun gave way to them, causing Hongjuan's hundreds of schemes to fail. He had no choice but to grit his teeth and accept these two disciples. After all, they owe the West. They have to pay it back. Hearing this, Feng Zichen was also surprised. He did not expect that there was such a reason why the two of them from the West arrived at the Purple Cloud Palace last. Without the guidance of the heavenly Tao, the two of them would not have been able to find the Purple Cloud Palace, let alone enter. Taoist Hongyun divided the two saint positions of the Xian sect, causing the Xian sect to be unable to prosper forever. With Taoist Hongjuan's personality, how could he tolerate him? Therefore, Hongjun gave Hongmeng purple qi to Hongyun, but did not say that he could become a saint. Isn't this telling everyone that if you want to become a saint, you can snatch it? Chapter 196. What's funny is that Hongyun thought that this was a great opportunity and was happy all day long, dreaming of becoming a sage. He didn't know that this was Hongjuan's way of hastening his death, which could take his life at any time. White Tiger Sacred Beast's words completely overturned Feng Zichen's understanding of Tao ancestor Hongjun. If White Tiger Sacred Beast had not said this, Feng Zichen would not have believed it at all. Tao ancestor Hongjun was recognized as the greatest figure in the untainted land. He was the one who opened up the mystery of the Great Way for all living beings, passed down the Great Way of Wonders, and gave all living beings a way to advance, giving them the possibility of becoming Daluo Jingxian. At the same time, he was also the one who confirmed the Sage-to-Be realm, giving all the Daluo Jingxian a way to advance, one step closer to the primordial Daluo Jingxian. After that, Tao ancestor Hongjun sacrificed himself and merged with the Great Way of Heaven, making the untainted land more perfect, benefiting all living beings in the untainted land. Feng Zichen could not accept that Tao ancestor Hongjun, a man of great virtue and virtue, had become such a scheming person in the eyes of White Tiger Sacred Beast. Don't you find it unbelievable that Tao ancestor Hongjun, the teacher of all living beings, has such a side to him that no one knows? White Tiger Sacred Beast seemed to have noticed Feng Zichen's surprise and said with a smile, "It is indeed unbelievable." Feng Zichen touched his head and said with a wry smile. At the same time, he also understood that if Tao ancestor Hongjun was a man of great virtue and did not scheme, how could he have survived from the primordial age until now? He would have been killed by others. Humph! Hong Jun is good at pretending. He always acts like a good man. But all the old people who have survived from the primordial age and the antiquity age know his background. Hong Jun is the best at scheming, and he is very evil. With a cold snort, the white tiger holy beast seemed to have recalled some unpleasant memories and said in an unpleasant tone, "In the ancient times, Hong Jun, that old fellow, relied on the fact that he was born early and seized countless fortunes. Even the West was not able to escape from his evil hands. In ancient times, he clearly knew that the demon ancestor Rahu was scheming against us, but he didn't say anything to remind us. He just happily watched our 3 races fight to the death. Later on, Hong Jun saw that Luoho's strength had increased rapidly with the help of the heaven and earth tribulation chi. He was gradually no longer a match for him. Then he hurriedly ran to the 3 clans and told us about the demonic path's conspiracy. He advised us to put down our hatred and fight against the demonic path together with him. Then we naively believed Hong Jun's nonsense and led the remaining experts of the 3 clans to Mount Meru in the west to engage in a life-and-death battle with the demon sect. Because none of the reinforcements that Hong Jun promised in advance came, after a great battle, all the experts of the 3 clans were killed or injured. We were also severely injured. The wilderness was also almost destroyed by us. Of course, since we were so severely injured, the demon sect couldn't be any better. Other than the demon ancestor Rahu, all the experts of the demon sect were either dead or injured. The strength of the demon sect was greatly reduced. At this time, Hong Jun suddenly rushed over with a group of celestial venerables of the celestial sect of wonders. Taking advantage of the demon sect's great reduction in strength, they crazily attacked Mount Meru. As for that traitor Hong Jun, forget about him doing such a treacherous thing. At that time, he pretended to persuade us to transform into the 5 elements sacred beasts and suppress the wilderness to eliminate the sins of the 3 clans. Bah! To think that Hong Jun looked like a good old man. He kept saying that it was for our good. If it was really for our good, why didn't the reinforcements that were promised come during the battle? Why did they have to wait until the battle was over to suddenly appear and rush over to take advantage of us? This is clearly using our 3 clans as spears. He still wants us to be grateful. Hong Jun is really dreaming. To think that we trusted him so much back then. We were really blind. What nonsense is this about transforming into the 5 elements sacred beasts to eliminate the sins of the 3 clans? It's obvious that Hong Jun was no match for Rahu and had to borrow our strength to weaken Rahu's strength. Hong Jun's actions are clearly all for his own sake, but from his mouth it's all for our own good. It's as if we don't agree, the 3 clans will be exterminated. It's really depressing. The more the white tiger's sacred beast spoke, the angrier it became. In the end, it was almost roaring. It almost jumped up, pointed at the sky, and scolded Hong Jun. What happened after that? Why was the Tao ancestor still no match for the demon ancestor when the strength of the demon sect was greatly reduced? Feng Zichen was listening excitedly when the white tiger's sacred beast suddenly stopped. It made him feel uncomfortable, and he couldn't help but ask. What Feng Zichen knew about such ancient secrets were all legends of later generations and were often a little distorted. Now, the person who had experienced it personally told him about the old story buried deep in the past. What a great opportunity this was! Who didn't want to know the truth about the ups and downs of the ancient past and the great war of immortals and demons that affected later generations? Although the white tiger's sacred beast's words were subjective and had some prejudice, it was much more real than the legends. What the white tiger's sacred beast said had greatly subverted Feng Zichen's previous understanding. The upright and selfless ancestor Hong Jun, who preached the untainted land, had such a despicable dark history. The truth that led to the decline of the 3 clans was completely different from the version that was circulated in the untainted land. Everyone knew that at the end of the ancient times, The three clans were instigated by the demon ancestor Rahu, and a shocking war broke out. A group of experts died because of it, and the untainted land was almost shattered. Fortunately, Ancestor Hung Jun came forward and persuaded the leaders of the three clans to transform into the 5 elements sacred beasts to suppress the untainted land and stabilize the 4 poles of the world. This move not only perfectly solved the destruction of the untainted land, but also made the untainted land further perfect. It was really a move of immeasurable merit. Today, Feng Zichen learned the truth of the past from the white tiger's sacred beast, which was completely different from the well-known facts. The reason for the decline of the 3 clans was the decisive battle with the demon sect. This was really beyond his imagination. If the news spread, he didn't know what kind of uproar it would cause. In the untainted land, this matter had not been spread at all. Without thinking carefully, it must have been done by Ancestor Hong Jun, because all the credit for the battle with the demon sect was on the Xian sect. From this, it could be inferred that it was Ancestor Hong Jun who blocked the news, concealed the truth of the matter, and took everything on the Xian sect. Otherwise, in the untainted land, who would dare to offend the 5 elements sacred beasts at the same time and completely erase the credit of the 3 clans in the great war of immortals and demons. Only Ancestor Hong Jun had such a powerful strength. Not only was he not afraid of the 5 elements sacred beasts, but he also made them afraid. If it were others, the 5 elements sacred beasts would have already attacked them. They would not be like today, hiding in the 4 poles and acting as if nothing had happened. Chapter 197. Hong Jun is very scheming. He used our 3 clans to weaken the power of the demon sect. He wanted to destroy the demon sect at the smallest price. The truth was just as he thought. Our 3 clans fought to the death and finally dealt a heavy blow to the demon sect. When the demon sect faced the encirclement of the Xian sect, they were defeated and had no power to resist at all. Unfortunately, Hong Jun didn't expect that the battle between our 3 clans and the demon sect would shake the universe. It made the 4 poles of the untainted land lose balance and was in danger of being overturned at any time. The destruction of the world was imminent. It immediately stirred up endless evil spirits that surged from all directions and swept across the entire untainted land. With this help, the strength of the demon ancestor Luo rose steadily. He almost broke into the realm of primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. He suppressed a group of Xian sect celestial primes by himself and beat them until they couldn't fight back. Hong Jun had no choice but to let the 5 of us transform into the 5 elements sacred beasts to suppress the 4 poles of the world, to stabilize the untainted land and calm the innate evil spirits that swept across the untainted land. When the 5 of us were at our peak, we might have been able to fight Hong Jun at that time. But at that time we were seriously injured and were no match for Hong Jun at all. It seems that Hong Jun means that if we don't agree, he doesn't mind doing it himself and sending us to the throne of the 5 elements sacred beasts. What's more, that bastard Hong Jun always talks about the 3 clans. He always asks us to think more for the 3 clans. It seems that he's thinking for the 3 clans, but in fact he's secretly threatening us. If we don't agree with his proposal, the 3 clans will be in danger of being exterminated in an instant. At this point, the tone of the white tiger's sacred beast changed. It was almost gnashing its teeth as it spoke. Its face was distorted as if there was endless hatred surging in its heart. It could be seen that even after so many years, the white tiger's sacred beast was still brooding over this matter. Its heart was filled with hatred for Hong Jun. Feng Zichen had some understanding of this. If someone threatened him with his life and the survival of the human tribe when he was seriously injured and forced him to do something he was unwilling to do, it would be a great loss for him to do so. For the sake of the human race, Feng Zichen would definitely not refuse. However, at the same time, he was naturally extremely dissatisfied with the person who dared to threaten him. He simply wished that he could kill that person. Hong Jun's heart is black. He's really ruthless, Since I am weaker than you, I have no choice but to lower my head. No matter how dissatisfied and unwilling we are, we have to consider the 3 clans. We can only agree to Hongjuan's request. Transformed into the 5 elemental sacred beast, suppressed in the 4 extremities, completely losing his freedom. After we became the 5 element sacred beasts, the great desolate world immediately stabilized. The boundless, innate, baleful aura disappeared, and the strength of the demon ancestor Rahu decreased accordingly. The celestial lord of the celestial sect of wonders, who was originally at a disadvantage, gradually gained the upper hand and completely suppressed Luo Ho. However, fiend ancestor Rahu is ultimately a chaos fiend celestial. The spokesperson he chose in the primordial world has a deep heritage and endless means. Despite being at an absolute disadvantage, he set up the immortal slaying sword formation, withstanding the attacks of 3 Khanate ultimate treasures and 4 pre-saints to kill all the immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect. Only Hongjun relied on his spiritual treasures to survive safely. After that, he took advantage of Rahu's exhaustion to summon the 3 corpses, forcing him to self-destruct and die. The immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect fell in the immortal slaying sword formation. Their true spirits were tainted by the Khanate tribulation chi, and the chances of them returning were slim. The Dharma treasures they left behind were all taken away by Hongjun. It can be said that the prosperity of the Xian sect today is built on the bones of those immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect. They exchanged their lives for it. Hongjun is just a thief. He stole the results of these immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect and took all the merit and glory for himself. Perhaps the death of those immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect was caused by Hongjuan's scheme. Otherwise, why would he wait until the immortal sovereigns of the Xian sect died before summoning the 3 corpses to fight the enemy? Why would he have done it earlier? These speculations were all inferred by the white tiger sacred beast after the ancient times, when he was bored and combined with Hongjuan's character. Needless to say, when he thought about it, it did make some sense. However, whether or not there were subjective emotions of the white tiger sacred beast in this was not something that Feng Zichen could speculate. This is really shocking. After pondering for a moment, Feng Zichen said with some shock, "The water of the untainted land was really deep. The truth of such a big thing as the ancient war could be distorted. This undoubtedly showed that the history that was being passed down in the untainted land was only what others wanted you to see and hear. As for the truth, perhaps only those who had experienced it personally would know. The untainted land is not as simple as you think. Which one of those who can live from the ancient times to the present doesn't have a dishonorable past? The truly bright and magnificent figures have long fallen in the ancient war. So, when you look at anyone, don't judge them based on rumors, because you don't know if the character that he is showing now is what he shows on the surface. In the end, the white tiger sacred beast summed up the lesson it learned and warned Feng Zichen. Yes, Zichen will remember. Feng Zichen nodded and said, "The 3 tribes had been set up by Hongjun, and they were miserable. No wonder the white tiger, sacred beast, said that. Haha, Tai, as long as the blood sea does not dry up, the poor way will not die. In the nether blood sea, even if you have a Khanate cardinal treasure, what can you do to me?" Suddenly, a loud voice resounded throughout the untainted land, attracting the attention of many powerful figures. Mingi and Tai were fighting in the nether blood sea. Interesting. Just as Feng Zichen was wondering, the white tiger, sacred beast, smiled faintly and waved its hand in the air. A light screen appeared, clearly reflecting everything that was happening in the blood sea. That's Dongwang Tai. In the sky above the blood sea, Dongwang Tai gently shook the Donghuang bell in his hand, causing the entire nether blood sea to shake violently. Boundless waves of blood rolled endlessly, and time and space were disordered. The Ashura tribesmen could not help but tremble under this force, and they looked at the figure in the sky in horror. As long as the blood sea does not dry up, Mingi will not die. Then I will evaporate the entire blood sea, and let's see if Mingi will die. Smiling coldly at the blood sea, Dong Huang Tai suddenly changed into his original form, which was a huge, three-legged golden crow. The golden crow was surrounded by golden grandson primordial fire, which was extremely hot. From afar, it looked like a small sun. Caw! Dong Huang Tai let out a long caw, flapped his wings, and flew toward the blood sea. Wherever the golden crow passed, grandson primordial fire rolled out, and terrifying heat swept in all directions, roasting the blood sea until it sizzled and evaporated. Chapter 198. Haha. What a joke. Tai, do you really think you're a saint? Evaporating the blood sea? How shameless. In the depths of the blood sea, Mingi noticed Dong Huang Tai's actions and laughed disdainfully. The nether blood sea was also known as the boundless blood sea. From this, one could see how big the blood sea was. It was simply boundless, countless times bigger than the great thousand realms. After all, the nether realm, which was comparable to the heaven realm in the future, was born in the blood sea. If the blood sea was not big enough, how could it contain the nether realm? Although Dong Huang Tai was strong, he was too arrogant to evaporate the nether blood sea. However, the true fire of the sun released terrifying heat, continuously evaporating the water of the blood sea, causing the surrounding water level to continuously drop. However, in just an instant, a large amount of blood water surged from other places, making up for the lack of water here. It was endless. Dong Huang Tai worked for a long time, but there was no effect at all. Mingi, I'll give you one last chance. As long as you hand over the Hongmeng purple gas, I'll immediately retreat. From then on, you'll be an honored guest of the heavenly court. The demons will never step half a step into the blood sea. Otherwise, I really don't mind using some methods to evaporate the blood sea. Dong Huang Tai was not angry that he did not cause any damage to the nether blood sea. He stopped in the air and gave a final ultimatum to Taoist Mingi. Humph, boasting. Taoist Mingi snorted and said mockingly, I didn't expect you to still be so stubborn. Dong Huang Tai, do you still think that this is the era when you're invincible? The entire eldritch world has to listen to your orders? Poor Wei thinks that you're used to being high and mighty. You've forgotten that times have changed. Now it's the era of the saints. You, Dong Huang Tai, have long become a thing of the past. You're no longer the top expert of the eldritch world. You came to the wrong place to show off in the nether blood sea. The blood sea is not a place for you to behave atrociously. Evaporating the blood sea? What shameless boasting. If you have the ability, evaporate it for poor Wei to see. The more Mingi Taoist spoke, the more delighted he became. His tone became arrogant as he vented out the dissatisfaction he had accumulated over the years towards Dong Huang Tai. However, as if he suddenly thought of something, Taoist Mingi's tone changed. Fellow Taoists, Hongming's purple qi is indeed not in poor Wei's body. Poor Wei could swear on this. Fellow Taoist Kuan Peng can also testify. After the poor Wei and fellow Taoist Kuan Peng killed Hongming, they searched every corner of the area, but they could not find the conclusion of Hongming's purple qi. This is probably what the teacher meant when he said that fate was not good enough. He was not fated with the Hongmeng purple aura. His voice was loud enough to ensure that every Daluo Jinxian could hear him. Clearly, he was explaining to the group of mighty figures. Mingi Taoist was not a fool. He knew that the purple gas in Hongmeng had a great implication. If he did not explain, everyone would think that the purple gas in Hongmeng was in his body. At that time, with the example of Taoist Red Cloud, he would be remembered by a group of mighty figures. It would not take long for him to follow in Taoist Red Cloud's footsteps. How could Mingi not be afraid? This matter was also very sullen. Mingi took the risk of offending the saints and joined forces with Kuan Peng to kill Taoist Red Cloud. However, he did not get any benefits. Instead, he offended Zhen Yuanzi. He was so angry that he vomited blood. Moreover, now everyone suspected that the purple gas in Hongmeng was in his body. This was really unfair to him. From the beginning to the end, he did not see the purple gas in Hongmeng. How could he get it? Because of this groundless reason, Dong Huang Tai came directly to his door. Mingi was really suffering in his heart. He could not be the scapegoat. Once this matter was confirmed, his nether blood sea would never have a peaceful day unless Tao ancestor Hong Jun took action. Stubborn. Seeing Mingi's arrogant attitude, Dong Huang Tai shook his head slightly and looked disappointed. The Sun Star, come. Dong Huang Tai's face darkened. He suddenly shouted to the sky and used his supreme magic to establish contact with the Sun Star hanging high in the sky. Rumble. The Sun Star suddenly shook. Infinite light burst out from its body, illuminating the universe and raising the temperature of the entire untainted land. Then, in front of Taoist Mingi's disbelieving eyes, the void suddenly twisted. A huge figure gradually emerged from it, dazzling. It was the Sun Star that crossed the infinite space and was about to descend to the blood sea. In an instant, infinite waves swept out. A large part of the blood sea disappeared instantly and did not recover for a long time. Tai, are you crazy? How could you bring the Sun Star to the blood sea? Do you know that the blood sea is the home of all living beings and the place where the evil spirits of heaven and earth gather? If the blood sea evaporates, infinite karma will descend. No matter how strong your demon clan is, it will be difficult for you to escape the fate of destruction. Taoist Mingi was really scared when he saw the Sun Star descending. The Sun Star was formed by Panga's left eye. It was also the embodiment of the extreme yang of heaven and earth. It contained power that was beyond the imagination of people. If it really descended to the blood sea, it might really evaporate the blood sea. The blood sea was the foundation of Mingi. Now that the danger of destruction was right in front of him, he could no longer remain calm. Fear grew in his heart. Logically speaking, the blood sea and the Sun Star were both formed by Panga's body. There should be no difference between them. However, things did not work that way. As soon as the Sun Star was born, it merged with the extreme yang of heaven and earth. How could the blood sea compare to it? The 5 elements, sacred beasts, each occupied an extreme place and had the power of a saint. As one of the 2 extremes of yin and yang, the Sun Star was not necessarily weaker than them. It might even be stronger. Moreover, the Sun Star shone on all things and benefited all living beings in the untainted land. This was a great act of merit. Merit would descend every day. Since the creation of heaven and earth, the Sun Star had absorbed a lot of merit. It was as if it was becoming stronger every day. Now, after countless years of strengthening, no one knew how terrifying the Sun Star was. Hiss! The Eastern Emperor has actually refined the Sun Star. No wonder he could still have the upper hand when facing the 2 saints alone. So that's how it is. When the mighty figures of the untainted land saw this scene, they immediately understood where the Eastern Emperor's confidence came from. With the Sun Star, if the saints did not use the power of the heavenly Tao, how could they be a match for the Eastern Emperor Tai? However, the Eastern Emperor was the emperor destined by the heavens. He did not lose the favor of the heavens. How could the heavenly Tao allow the saints to use the power of the heavenly Tao to bully him? In the end, the power of the heavenly Tao was only an external force, not the saints' own power. When the saints used it, they could not use it as they wished like their own power. For those who were blessed by the heavens, the power of the heavenly Tao was almost useless. Refining the Sun Star, Tai has a good plan. If he really succeeds, he will probably become the primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. However, it's not that easy to completely refine the Sun Star. The heavenly Tao will not allow it. Chapter 199. Sensing Dong Huang Tai's plan, the 6 saints were stunned at first. Then they smiled and stopped paying attention to this matter. The sun star was one of the foundations of the primordial world. It pushed the operation of the universe and was closely related to the fate of all living beings. It could be said to have a great responsibility. How could the heavenly Tao allow such an important item to be controlled by an outsider? It would definitely hold it tightly in its hand and not allow outsiders to touch it. If Dong Huang Tai had only refined a trace of the power of the sun star, it would have been fine. With the favor of the heavens on him, the heavenly Tao might not have bothered with him. However, he had tried to refine the entire sun star. This had undoubtedly touched the reverse scale of the heavenly Tao. No matter how much favor he had, it was useless. In that case, how could the heavenly Tao tolerate him? It would definitely reduce his luck, cut off his opportunities, and send down endless tribulations to kill him. Refining the sun star seemed to be a shortcut to primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian, but it was actually a dead end. On the way forward, he would be killed by the heavenly Tao sooner or later. How could it allow him to reach the end? The dead were not worth the saint's attention. Tai, don't disappoint the poor way. You have to walk down this broad path, so that the poor way won't plot against you and think of a way to kill you. Looking at Dong Huang Tai in the sea of blood, Taoist Kundi muttered to himself with anticipation. He really wanted Dong Huang Tai to immediately refine the sun star so that he could be killed by the heavenly Tao. Among the saints, the one who wanted Dong Huang Tai to die the most was Taoist Kundi. When he became a saint in the past, it could be said to be the most glorious moment since his birth. Unfortunately, a mistake in his thoughts caused Dong Huang Tai to attack brazenly. He fought against 2 alone and still suppressed the 2 of them. It greatly embarrassed him, causing him to lose his dignity as a saint and completely become the laughingstock of the primordial world. The glory only lasted for a moment before it disappeared. As such, Taoist Kundi naturally hated Tai to the core. In the dark, he had already prepared several methods. He planned to find a suitable opportunity to completely kill Dong Huang Tai. Damn it, Tai, poor Wei is going to fight you to the death. Seeing that the sun star was getting closer and closer to the Blood Sea, and that the Blood Sea was in danger of being annihilated at any moment, Taoist Mingi finally could not bear it any longer. Raising the Yuan Tu and Avici swords, he rode the 12th grade Red Lotus of Hellfire out of the depths of the Blood Sea and charged towards Dong Huang Tai. You overestimate yourself. Laughing coldly, Tai lightly shook the Dong Huang bell, and a mighty force poured out, twisting time and space, trapping Taoist Mingi outside of time and space, unable to advance or retreat. After that, Tai did not stop. He continued to ring the Dong Huang bell 9 times in a row. The bell tolled, shaking the past, present, and future. The river of time froze, completely freezing the time and space that belonged to Taoist Mingi. No. Releasing his divine thoughts, Dong Huang Tai thoroughly searched Taoist Mingi from head to toe, inside and out. He did not find any trace of the Hongmeng purple qi. It seems that the Hongmeng purple qi is really not with Mingi. That's strange. At that time, other than Mingi and the other 2, no one else made a move. But why did the Hongmeng purple qi disappear? Frowning, Tai was somewhat puzzled. One had to know that from the moment Kuan Pong made a move, he and Di Jun had been watching. They could be sure that no one else had interfered in this matter. But the strange thing was that right before their eyes, the Hongmeng purple qi had suddenly disappeared. It was really puzzling. Not enough opportunities? How is that possible? From the looks of it, Teacher doesn't want a saint to appear in our demon race. Di Jun and Tai were in charge of the heavenly court, and their luck was unparalleled. How could there be insufficient opportunities? And the only one who could take away the Hongmeng purple qi under their noses without being discovered by them was Tao ancestor Hongjun. It was not difficult to deduce that Hongjun did not want them to become saints. Tai, how dare you humiliate me like this? Poor Wei swears to not let you go. Just as Tai was thinking, the red lotus of hellfire suddenly bloomed with brilliant light. Monstrous hellfire surged out, sweeping across thousands of miles. At the same time, two terrifying blood-colored sword lights shot out, illuminating the surrounding void red as if it had turned into a blood-colored purgatory. It was extremely terrifying. It was Taoist Mingi, who had broken free from the imprisonment of the Donghuang Bell. With a heart full of hatred, he charged toward Donghuang Tai. After all, Mingi was the most powerful great medium in the untainted land. Donghuang Tai could trap him for a while, but how could he trap him forever? After a short while, he broke free. Blood Sea Formation, rise. Standing on the Blood Sea, Taoist Mingi made a series of hand seals. In the void around him, blood gods appeared one after another. There were a total of 480 million of them. They spread all over the Blood Sea, forming a vast formation that suppressed Donghuang Tai. Ridiculous. Looking at Mingi in disdain, Donghuang Tai made a hand seal with one hand. Taoist rhymes filled the air as he suddenly pointed at the sky. Instantly, the sun-like speed of the Netherblood Sea accelerated. In just an instant, the entire Blood Sea decreased by 30%. Hiss! Is Tai crazy? He's actually doing it for real. If he really evaporates the Netherblood Sea, the demons will end well. In the distance, the great mediums of the untainted land who saw this scene sucked in a breath of cold air, their faces full of shock. At first, when they saw Tai summon the Sun Star and look like he was going to evaporate the Blood Sea, they did not take it to heart at all. They thought that Tai was just scaring Mingi. Now they did not think so. Seeing the Sun Star that was about to descend on the Blood Sea, everyone knew that Tai's words were not false. He really wanted to evaporate the Blood Sea. At this moment, the great medium could not help but panic. They did not care at all whether Taoist Mingi died or not. However, the Netherblood Sea was related to the stability of the primordial world. They could not lose it. Immediately, a few great medium who were familiar with Tai sent down their divine thoughts, wanting to rush to the Blood Sea and persuade Tai to stop. Tai, how dare you? On Mount Kunlun, the three pure ones stood up angrily and glared at Tai's figure. They held their Dharma treasures tightly in their hands. Once the persuasion failed and Tai insisted on destroying the Blood Sea, the three of them would take out their Dharma treasures and kill Tai. While saints enjoyed supreme power, they also bore the heavy responsibility of protecting the primordial world. If the Blood Sea appeared, the primordial world would be in turmoil. Saints would be suspected of negligence and would definitely be punished by the heavenly Tao. After all, the reason why the heavenly Tao established the same position was to help him better govern the primordial world. In the end, under the rule of the saints, the primordial world became worse and worse. How could the heavenly Tao allow it? Not only would the three pure ones not tolerate Tai's actions, but even the Niwa who lived high in the sky and Juan Ti, who was far away in the west, would not tolerate it. He had already secretly prepared his Dharma treasures and could deliver a fatal blow at any time. Chapter 200. Sigh. In the eastern sky, Fushi let out a long sigh. His figure flashed, and he disappeared from the Emperor's Sheep Palace. He appeared in front of the Netherblood Sea. "Brother, stop!" Fushi bowed to Tai and pointed in the direction of the heavenly court. "Brother, there are still billions of demons in the heavenly court. You're happy that you flattened the Blood Sea today, but the future of those demons is gone. Brother, please consider the overall situation of the demon race. Calm down and go around Mingi." The Netherblood Sea was destroyed and endless negative karma descended. Daluo Jinxian might be able to survive, but the descendants of the demon race who had not reached this realm would be plagued by negative karma. They would never be able to prove their Tao as Daluo Jinxian. "Brother, you're one of the three sovereigns of the heavenly court. You have the responsibility of maintaining the operation of heaven and earth. You have to prioritize the eldritch world. You can't do anything that shakes the foundation of heaven and earth, so as to avoid damaging the luck of the heavenly court. Brother, please reconsider. After Fushi finished speaking, a few more powerful figures walked out of the void and persuaded Tai to show mercy. Thank you for your reminder. I didn't think it through. I've troubled you. After being persuaded, Tai gradually calmed down. After thinking for a while, he understood that what they said was true. He quickly stopped and thanked them. It's okay, brother, you're just angry. Even if Poor Wei and the others didn't remind you, with your wisdom, you'll be able to figure out the reason later. Seeing that the sun was slowly returning to its original position, everyone heaved a sigh of relief and spoke politely to Tai. Brother, the Netherblood Sea is the most filthy place. It's not a place for us to stay for long. Let's return to the heavenly court first. Fushi glanced from the corner of his eye and saw the indignant look on Taoist Mingi's face. He was afraid that he would cause trouble again, so he quickly said to Dong Huang Tai, Yes. Poor Wei and the others haven't seen each other for a long time. We can take this opportunity to discuss Tao in the heavenly court. Moreover, Tao Brothers' divine might is close to invincible, far surpassing ours. Presumably, you already have some understanding of the ethereal, chaotic, mystic realm. Poor Wei and the others shamelessly seek guidance from Taoist Brother. I hope Taoist Brother won't hold back. Noticing Fushi's intention, the others chimed in. In short, there was absolutely no harm in letting Tai leave the Netherblood Sea. Fellow Taoists, you are too kind. Tai is not worthy of your praise. Fellow Taoists, please go ahead first. After the Poor Wei resolves the matter at hand, I will rush to the heavenly court and meet up with you. After saying this, Tai first bowed, and then, ignoring everyone's reaction, he reached out his hand and suddenly grabbed at the depths of the Blood Sea. Rumble. Under Tai's terrifying power, the void let out a wail, unable to bear the burden. The entire sea of blood surged. Thunder rumbled. Lightning snakes danced wildly, and many strange phenomena appeared. A streak of blood-red light flew out from the depths of the Blood Sea and was firmly grasped by Dong Huang Tai. The light was resplendent, and inside was a drop of blood-red liquid. The crystal was clear and gave off a bloody aura, like the blood of heaven and earth. It was surrounded by the laws of the great Tao, and countless innate runes danced in it. It was extremely mystical. This item was called the blood of heaven and earth. It had been nurtured by the Blood Sea for countless years, and was extremely precious. Mingi had relied on this item to create the blood god on the level of Daluo Jinxian. Taiyu. Mingi was furious. He was about to attack, but when he remembered that he was no match for Tai, he could only grit his teeth and look at Tai, swallowing back the curses that were about to come out of his mouth. Today, for the sake of my fellow Taoists, I will spare your life. As for taking this item away, it is to teach you a lesson. I will let you know that the demon race is not something you can provoke. Dong Huang Tai said to Mingi, holding the blood of heaven and earth in his hand. Fellow Taoists, let's go. Then, ignoring Mingi's reaction, Tai turned around and said to Fushi and the others who had yet to leave, So powerful, so majestic. Through the light screen, Feng Zichin saw Dong Huang Tai's power and could not help but feel envious. He felt that this was what a real man should be like. At this moment, he somewhat understood how Liu Bang and Xiangyu felt when they saw the first emperor come out. As a person, what more could he ask for in life? Are you envious? If you are, then work hard on your cultivation. You are the most talented person I have ever seen. Even some Khanate god fiends are far inferior to you. Perhaps in the future you will achieve something that is not inferior to Dong Huang Tai's. Noticing the envy in Feng Zichin's eyes, the white tiger, sacred beast, said with a smile, This Tai is really an anomaly. He is so strong that it is unbelievable. If he is given enough time, it will not be difficult for him to step into the realm of chaos Daluo Jinxian. In the end, he sighed in shock. All right, I've said enough today, so I won't waste any more words with you. Aren't you going to the northern underworld to visit that old turtle, the black tortoise? No need to go through so much trouble. I am in a good mood now, so I will give you a ride. It is also a reward for chatting with an old man like me. The white tiger, sacred beast, waved at Feng Zichin, and an invisible force appeared. It was extremely powerful and wrapped him up, passing through infinite space. In just a moment, he was brought to the northern underworld. Hiss, this place is so cold! As soon as he landed, Feng Zichin did not have time to look around the surroundings. He felt waves of bone-chilling coldness, and he could not help but shiver. Feng Zichin used the Hongmeng heavenly light to isolate himself from the outside world. Only then did he feel a little better and look around. In front of him was all white snow and glaciers and rivers. There was no land at all. The northern underworld was at the end of the north. There were few living creatures in this place, and ferocious beasts ran rampant. It was a famous cold place in the Eldritch Age. But unlike the barren west, the northern underworld was rich in spiritual chi and rich in materials. It was a rare treasure land in the Eldritch Age. However, the northern underworld was shrouded in innate coldness, so the ice and snow did not melt all year round. The earth was gradually replaced by ice and snow, and even the innate chi was transforming into the cold attribute. The increasingly bad cultivation environment caused the living creatures in the northern underworld to decrease day by day. At the same time, the unique environment of the northern underworld also gave birth to many strange creatures. Among them, the most representative were the two innate saints born in the northern underworld: the black tortoise with the body of a turtle and a snake, and the Kuan Pang with the body of a Kuan fish and a rock. One soul and two bodies could transform each other and merge into one. What was more amazing was that the two bodies were two completely different species. The creation of heaven and earth was really wonderful. The coldness here is so strong. It should be the hinterland of the northern underworld. It should not be too far from the residence of the black tortoise. After looking around and combining the actual situation, Feng Zichin deduced his position. Immediately, without hesitation, he determined the direction and flew towards the north. Chapter 201. When Shaoqin arrived at the North Pole, the ice and snow had already disappeared. There was only a black ocean flowing quietly, giving off an aura that could freeze everything. The black water was not ordinary. It was the Xianming primordial water, one of the top 10 divine waters of the great desolate Aeon. It was a treasure born of the ice spirit Tao and could freeze everything and extinguish all life. It could also be used to cultivate the Xianming divine light, which was extremely powerful. The ocean formed by the Xianming black water was the most dangerous. Even if Daluo Jinxian fell into it, his Tao body would shatter and his life would be extinguished. His Tao would condense, and his indestructible true spirit would sink to the bottom of the lake. It would be difficult for him to revive. Whoosh! Just as Feng Zichin was thinking about how to cross the Xianming black water, the ocean parted on its own, revealing a passageway that led to the North Pole. Many thanks, Black Tortoise Holy Venerate. After thinking for a while, Feng Zichin understood the reason. He bowed slightly to the front and followed the passageway to the North Pole. The Black Tortoise was a top expert in divination in the great desolate Aeon. It was not difficult for him to divine the time and purpose of Feng Zichin's visit. At the end of the passageway, Feng Zichin arrived at a small island. There was a black-robed old man on the island, looking at him with a smile. How could Feng Zichin not know who this person was? He quickly went forward and bowed. Junior Feng Zichin greets the Black Tortoise Holy Venerate. Not bad. You are a good junior. You are much stronger than the juniors of my water race. The black tortoise holy beast praised after sizing up Feng Zichin. Holy Venerate, you are too kind. Xuanqi and Aoe are both very talented. If not for the help of the human race's luck, how could I compare to them? Feng Zichin waved his hand and said humbly. He could not admit to this. Otherwise, the younger generation of the Aqua tribe would hate him to death if the news were to spread. I already know why you've come here. The Xuanwu sacred beast chuckled and changed the topic. Take this lump of innate water elemental origin. As it spoke, the black tortoise took out a ball of black gas and injected it into Feng Zichin's body. Roar! As the black gas entered Feng Zichin's body, the shadow of the black tortoise in his kidney immediately solidified and turned into a black gas. It resonated with the other 4 qis and appeared outside his body together. It slowly rotated and displayed the wonders of the 5 elements. At this point, the 5 qis in Feng Zichin's chest had reached perfection, and he had completely cultivated the 5 qis to the origin realm. If the eyes do not see, the soul is in the liver. If the ears do not hear, the essence is in the kidneys. If the tongue does not speak, the soul is in the heart. If the nose does not smell, the soul is in the lungs. If the limbs do not move, the mind is in the spleen. Mind, spirit, soul, spirit, and will are all in their positions. Keep the body and mind in check. The heart does not wander outside, and the emotions do not chase after things. As long as he went into seclusion to comprehend for 1,000 years, he would be able to transcend the river of destiny and become Daluo Jinxian. Thank you, Sacred Master. Zichin will never forget your help. After regaining his senses, Feng Zichin quickly thanked the Sacred Master. It's okay. It's just a small matter. It's nothing to me. The sacred beast black tortoise shook its head and said nonchalantly, Sacred Master, I have a request. I wonder if you can grant it? Thinking of the sacred beast white tiger's advice, Feng Zichin planned to ask the sacred beast black tortoise about the future of the human race. You want to ask about the human race, right? I have divined this before. I vaguely feel that the human race's vitality seems to be related to the 3,000 sectors. However, the 3,000 sectors are still in the process of being born and are hidden in the endless void by the heavenly axiom. Other than Hongjun, no one knows where it is. How could the human race have anything to do with it? It's really puzzling. At this point, the sacred beast black tortoise was also a little confused. The heavenly axiom showed that the human race's survival was in the 3,000 sectors. However, even the sages could not find it. So how could the human race find it? What was the difference between this survival and death? However, while the sacred beast black tortoise was confused, Feng Zichin understood the connection. Just because the sages could not find it did not mean that he could not find it. The roots of the world tree were connected to the 3,000 sectors and hundreds of millions of small and medium worlds. When it grew to a certain extent, it could enter the sector through the roots of the world tree. The world tree could also accelerate the birth of the sector. If a few sectors were born in advance before the demon race slaughtered the human race and sent some of the human race into them, a part of the human race's strength could be preserved to avoid the disaster. Not only that, if this was successful, it could also give the sages a big surprise. In the untainted land, thousands of races ran rampant. Compared to them, the human race had no advantage at all. Because of this, the human race was chosen by the sages to become the puppet-like protagonists of heaven and earth. As the leader of the human race, how could Feng Zichin be willing to let the human race become the sages' puppets or even tools? At this moment, after the sacred beast black tortoise's reminder, Feng Zichin had a big plan in mind. At present, the 3,000 sectors were protected by the heavenly Tao, and no one knew where they were. He could completely break the human race into pieces and scatter them into the 3,000 sectors to avoid the eyes and ears of the sages. He could secretly develop accumulate strength, and gradually occupy the sector and hundreds of millions of small and medium worlds. When the sages cleaned up the untainted land, completely controlled the situation in the untainted land, and established the human race as the protagonists of heaven and earth, Feng Zichen would raise his arms and call for countless human masters from the various sectors to gather in the untainted land. At that time, when the human masters of the Daluo Jingxian realm suddenly appeared in front of the sages, their expressions would be very interesting. Even if the sages had the strength to easily kill the Daluo Jingxian, they could not act wantonly. Otherwise, wouldn't the untainted land be in chaos? Moreover, when the Daluo Jingxian returned, they would naturally carry the luck of the world they were in. In this way, the human race would be able to gather the luck of countless worlds, and would definitely become a powerful force not inferior to the shaman and demon race. At that time, it would not be so easy for the sages to control the human race. This plan was based on Feng Zichen's idea of using the countryside to surround the cities. The success rate was quite high, and the human race had a bright future. Not to mention Feng Zichen's thoughts flying in a mess. After the sacred beast Xuanwu finished talking about the human race, it continued to say, "I'm not sure about the survival of the human race, but I have a little idea about your sword principle going against the innate heaven." Ah, what? Feng Zichen, who was thinking about the big plan, was stunned when he heard the sacred beast Xuanwu's words. Then he quickly reacted and said Zichen was rude. "I hope you don't blame me, sacred beast. It's okay. You are worried about the human race, so it's inevitable that you lose your composure. How can I blame you?" The sacred beast Xuanwu said with a smile. In its calculation, Feng Zichen had several ways to leave the human race, transform into an innate god fiend, and be free from then on. But for the human race, he gave up one by one. The sacred beast Xuanwu appreciated this very much. Chapter 202. May I ask, Holy Lord, you just said that you already have an idea of the way to reverse the Khanate Sword Dao. I wonder what method it is. After all, the Sword Dao was created by Feng Zichen. It would be best if he could use this Dao to achieve Daluo Jingxian. There is no precedent in the primordial world for the postnatal Dao to reverse the Khanate Dao. Once it appears, there will be many disasters. If you don't reach Daluo Jingxian's realm, there will be no possibility of success. Obviously, the Black Tortoise did not think highly of Feng Zichen's ability to achieve the Dao with the Sword Dao. However, the Black Tortoise was experienced and knowledgeable. After thinking for a moment, it came up with a solution that was not a solution. However, nothing is absolute. The calamity is the descent of the heavenly Dao. Then, you only need to hide from the perception of the heavenly Dao and set up the Khanate Sword Dao in advance, making it the foundation of the world. In this way, even if the heavenly Dao is furious, it will not take the risk of damaging the foundation of the primordial world to kill you. At most, it will just go through the motions and send you a few world-destroying divine thunder as a warning. After the Black Tortoise finished speaking, Feng Zichen was speechless. This method sounded reasonable at first, but after thinking about it carefully, it was completely impossible. The heavenly Dao did not care about ordinary small matters. It was fine if it was deceived. However, creating something out of nothing and forcefully adding a Khanate Dao to the primordial world. This kind of major matter involved the operation of the world and the change of the myriad Dao. Even if the heavenly Dao was blind and deaf, it could still sense it. Moreover, it was not. As such, it was almost impossible to hide it from the heavenly Dao. However, what kind of person was the Black Tortoise? There was no reason that it could not think of something that it could think of. However, it still said it. Didn't that mean it had a way to deceive the heavenly Dao? Holy Lord, do you have a way to deceive the heavenly Dao? With that thought in mind, Feng Zichen asked tentatively. In other places I might not have a way, but in the northern underworld there is a strange place that can isolate the myriad Dao. If you achieve the Tao there, the heavenly Tao will definitely not discover it. The black tortoise stroked its beard and said with a smile, "Isolate the myriad Tao? There is actually such a strange place in the primordial world. This is truly unheard of. I don't know where the mysterious place is. Please tell me, my lord." Feng Zichen had been in the untainted land for so long, but he had never heard of such a place. He could not help but feel curious. The black tortoise paused for a moment before it said, "This place is called the Sinkhole." "Sinkhole? My lord, are you joking?" Even Daluo Jingxian might not be able to walk out of such a dangerous place alive, let alone me. Hearing this, Feng Zichen's face fell. The black tortoise made it sound nice, but was the Sinkhole a place he could go? The ultimate, the final land of the universe, was the resting place of all living beings, the final destination of all worlds. Over there, the myriad Taos did not appear, and the laws were not clear. It was known as the land of the last days. It was the true land of death in the untainted land. At the same time, the void end was also the exhaust port of the primordial world. The waste gas and impure gas that the world could not convert on its own would gather there. At a specific time, it would be spat out by the void end and flow into the great chaos, where it would be worn down by the chaos chi. What was even more unbearable was that the void end was formed by Panga's back in. Just thinking about it made one feel disgusted. It was truly filthy. Compared to it, the blood sea seemed abnormally clean. Even the heavenly Tao did not want to look at this place. Which decent person would go there? Besides, if he dared to go to the void end, what sword Tao was there to prove? It would be better to directly prove the Tao of the stars and perfect his Tao fruit. Ha! My young friend, although the void end is dangerous, if you want to achieve Daluo Jingxian with sword Tao, this is the only way. Whether to go or not, you can weigh it yourself. This matter concerns your future, and I can't make a decision for you. The black tortoise was not surprised by Feng Zichen's reaction. If it was him, he would not go to the void end. Not only was it dangerous, but it was also abnormally disgusting. Holy Lord, my ability is limited. I can only think of a way to establish the Khanate sword Tao after I become Daluo Jingxian. For now, it's better to focus on cultivating the Tao of the 5 elements and use it to achieve Daluo Jingxian. Feng Zichen would not go to the void end. It was strange and unpredictable, full of the unknown. No one knew what dangers there were inside, and he was not confident that he could walk out alive. That's right. It's the safest for you to achieve Tao with the 5 elements. The Khanate sword Tao is not something you can touch now. Knowing when to advance and retreat, and knowing the gains and losses, could go further and longer on the path of Tao. Clearly, the black tortoise was very satisfied with Feng Zichen's choice. The northern underworld is located overseas. It's not easy for you to come here. I can't let you go back empty-handed. As if thinking of something, the black tortoise took out 24 pearls and threw them to Feng Zichen. These hailstone divine pearls are useless in my hands, so I'll give them to you. The 24 pearls were silver white, crystal clear, and shining brightly. Cold air surged around them, and Tai Yin Chi was emitted. They were like bright moons, dreamy and beautiful. The hailstone divine pearls were the top treasures of the northern underworld. It was born from the Khanate chill in the depths of the northern underworld, and was nurtured under the Tai Yin starlight for hundreds of millions of years. This treasure was a Khanate spiritual treasure. If it was refined carefully, it would become a rare postnatal spiritual treasure. If one was lucky enough to find the Khanate Tai Yin origin, one could merge it and refine it into a Khanate spiritual treasure, the Tai Yin pearl. Thank you, Holy Lord. Feng Zichen thanked the black tortoise after taking the hailstone divine pearls. The 24 hailstone divine pearls could be refined into a set of postnatal spiritual treasures, and its power would not be inferior to a Khanate spiritual treasure. As for the Kane Taiyin origin, the Taiyin star was the demon empress' backyard. He should not think too much about it. It's time for you to leave. The 5 cheese unifications have been completed, and it's time for you to break through the Daluo Jinxian. Remember, if you don't become a Daluo, it's all in vain. He waved at Feng Zichen, and the black tortoise sacred beast sent him out. Daluo Jinxian. Outside the black ocean, Feng Zichen murmured softly to himself, and then turned and rushed toward the human race. In the untainted land, only when one reached the Daluo Jinxian could he be considered to have the power to protect himself, and had infinite possibilities. At the same time, he was no longer a chess piece, and jumped out of the chessboard of heaven and earth. He was qualified to watch the game, and could even become a chess player and control the fate of all living beings. After hundreds of thousands of years of cultivation, Feng Zichen was only one step away from becoming a Daluo Jinxian. He only needed to go back and cultivate for 1,000 years, and he would succeed. At this moment, he could not help but feel a sense of joy in his heart, and even his flying speed could not help but increase. However, his good mood did not last long, and was suddenly interrupted by a sudden accident. As he flew, Feng Zichen suddenly felt a sense of oppression in his heart, as if something bad was about to happen to him. Chapter 203. What's going on? Why do I suddenly feel a sense of danger? Puzzled, Feng Zichen hurriedly took out the chaos bead to protect himself. Only then did he relax and look around. However, as far as the eye could see, the surrounding glaciers and snow were still as before. Just as Feng Zichen was feeling bewildered, he saw 2 laws of heaven and earth appear in the sky above the northern underworld and collide with each other. In an instant, a terrifying force swept out, tearing the sky and destroying the great path. Boundless destructive chi shot out, turning into a destructive storm that swept across the wilderness. Oh no! Before he could react, the destructive storm had arrived in front of Feng Zichen and swept him into an unknown place. Kun Peng Dai. Feng Zichen, who was struggling in the destructive storm, vaguely heard Zenyuanzi's voice. Thus, he understood what was going on. His expression changed, and he cursed bad luck. Obviously, Zenyuanzi had freed himself to come to the northern underworld to find trouble with Kun Peng. Coincidentally, he had run into him and was involved in this, suffering an unexpected disaster. The 2 were at least in the late sage-to-be. When they fought, their destructive power could destroy the world. Even the aftermath was not something that Feng Zichen, who had not become a Daluo, could withstand. Therefore, he could only hide in the chaos bead and float in the destructive storm. He did not dare to take a step out, for fear that he would be swept away by the aftermath of the battle. As the battle between the 2 became more and more intense, more destructive chi was produced, causing the destructive storm outside to become more and more powerful. At this time, even if Feng Zichen wanted to leave, he might not be able to break through the destructive storm. He could only wait for it to subside. How unlucky! Seeing that the Daluo Jinxian was about to become a Daluo, Feng Zichen could not help but feel a little depressed. He did not know how long it would take to become a Daluo. Perhaps this is called the road to happiness is strewn with setbacks. Laughing and crying, Feng Zichen comforted himself. He also vaguely felt that something was wrong, as if there was an invisible hand behind all of this. Otherwise, with his karmic luck and virtue, how could he have possibly encountered such a thing? Now, Feng Zichen could only place his hopes on the sacred beast, Black Tortoise. He hoped that it would notice his situation and come here to save him. The moment something happened to Feng Zichen, the Black Tortoise opened its eyes with a puzzled expression. Strange. In his calculations, Feng Zichen would definitely return to the human race smoothly and attain the Tao of Daluo Jinxian. But what was the situation now? Why would there be such a big error with his calculations? It's you, Hong Jun. Just as it was about to save Feng Zichen, the black tortoise suddenly felt a vast and boundless power. That power was so familiar that it was unforgettable and unforgettable. It was Tao ancestor Hongjun. In this way, it also explained why Feng Zichen's fate trajectory would change, but he could not detect it. Hongjun was almost omnipotent in the untainted world. If he made a move, even the impossible would become possible. It was normal for him to change a person's fate without the black tortoise being able to detect it. However, there was one thing that puzzled the black tortoise. Feng Zichen was not bad, but he was not qualified to enter Hongjun's eyes. But why did Hongjun plot against him? Hongjun, you're really getting worse and worse. You even have to plot against a junior who hasn't become the Daluo Jinxian. It's really despicable and shameful. While thinking, the black tortoise opened its mouth and scolded Hongjun for attacking Feng Zichen. It vented a lot of the anger that had accumulated in its heart. However, what kind of person was Hongjun? He had long stopped caring about honor and disgrace. In the face of the black tortoise's ridicule, he just smiled and did not care. If he was calculative about that, how could he have obtained his current status? Fellow Taoist black tortoise, you've misunderstood. The poor Wei has no ill intentions towards Feng Zichen, Hongjun said as he showed himself. No ill intentions? If you don't have ill intentions, why did you send him to the void end? Glancing at Feng Zichen, the black tortoise realized that he had already been swept away by the destructive storm and rushed towards the void end. Fellow Taoist, you might not know this, but this person carries the destiny of Pangu and has a huge opportunity to do in the future. There's still some opportunities in the void and that might be able to help him. Therefore, the poor Wei sent him into the void and to fulfill his creation. Hongjun bowed to the black tortoise and said, Opportunity? All right, Hongjun, you're the incarnation of the heavenly Tao. Every word and action of yours contains the will of the heavens. Whatever you say, I won't argue with you. I think that as a Tao ancestor, you can't bring yourself to make things difficult for a junior. The black tortoise did not doubt Hongjun's words. Things were different now. He was now the spokesperson of the heavenly Tao. His words were the will of the heavens. He could not speak nonsense anymore. Even if there wasn't an opportunity to begin with, after what he said, there would be an opportunity. Thinking of the past, the black tortoise was still angry and did not want to talk to Hongjun. He glanced at Feng Zichen again and saw that he was not in danger. In a flash, he returned to the depths of the North Pole. Haha! With a chuckle, Taoist Hongjun slowly dissipated. After an unknown period of time, feeling that the destructive storm was gradually subsiding, Feng Zichen's heart stirred and he walked out of the chaos bead. Ugh! It stinks. Where is this place? Why is it so smelly? Damn it! Just based on the stench, ordinary Tai Jinxian would probably die from the stench without even doing anything. As soon as he walked out of the chaos bead, before Feng Zichen had time to observe the surrounding environment, he felt a foul stench coming to his nose and rushing straight to his head. It was so smelly that tears flowed down his face. He quickly pointed at the chaos bead, and a chaotic aura gushed out and wrapped Feng Zichen in layers, completely isolating him from the outside world. Oh no, this stench is poisonous. After cutting off the connection with the stench, Feng Zichen mobilized his mana and wanted to force the stench out of his body. But as soon as he started to use his cultivation method, he found that something was wrong. After the stench entered his body, it turned into black gas and quietly melted his vitality, destroying his body. Even the great path that he had painstakingly cultivated showed signs of disintegration. What is this? It's so strange. Mobilizing the mana in his body, Feng Zichen tried to destroy the black gas. But before the mana touched the black gas, it collapsed on its own and integrated with the black gas, strengthening its power. Then he mobilized the power of the great path and rushed toward the black gas. But the great path that he had painstakingly cultivated in the untainted land disintegrated layer by layer in front of the black gas and did not have any effect at all. After that, Feng Zichen tried to mobilize the power of the laws of heaven and earth, but he was surprised to find that there was no trace of the aura of the great path in this place. It could be called a lawless place. Chapter 204. Sensing that something was wrong, Feng Zichen hurriedly released his divine will and scanned the surroundings. Soon after, he felt a piercing pain. As soon as his divine will left his body, it was devoured by an inexplicable force, causing him to be unable to sense what was going on. Taking advantage of Feng Zichen's distraction, the black gas in his body raged even more, crazily devouring his vitality. At the same time, the chaotic gas surrounding his body also began to tremble violently. It was an inexplicable force from the outside world that was fiercely attacking the chaotic gas, intending to destroy him. Suppress! He poured all his remaining dermic powers into the chaos bead. Immediately, a supreme suppressive force came, suppressing everything around him. It's the ultimate. At this moment, Feng Zichen finally saw the scene outside. His pupils constricted as he exclaimed. As far as the eye could see, the void was filled with black air currents, rolling endlessly, emitting a decaying, ominous, silent aura, and so on. It was extremely horrifying, as if the universe was about to end. Beneath his feet were balls of multicolored viscous liquid. The stench he had smelled earlier was coming from them. This was the waste gas and impure air of the primordial world, sucked in and precipitated by the ultimate. After a period of time, it would be sprayed into the chaos by the ultimate. Tisk, tisk. Not long ago, he said that he would never step into the ultimate, but now he has directly barged in. I will never believe that this is the will of the heavens. Thinking of everything that had happened recently, Feng Zichen vaguely felt that he had most likely been schemed against. Otherwise, how could he be so unlucky to be affected by the battle between Zenyuanzi and Kuinpeng and fall into the ultimate? I wonder who's so wicked to bring me to the sinkhole. I wonder if he wants to help me or kill me. Knowing that this was the sinkhole, Feng Zichen's hanging heart involuntarily relaxed. Fear often came from the unknown. Knowing where this place was, it was much easier to solve it. Feng Zichen immediately calmed down and communicated with the Tree of World. He drew streams of pure Khanate chi from it to make up for the lack of Dharma power in his body. After that, the aura on his body suddenly changed. It became incomparably ancient and noble. A violent aura surged, and a figure that seemed like the great path appeared behind him, shaking the entire ultimate. It was the figure of the chaos demonic god. The sinkhole was the final land of the primitive universe. Here, none of the great Taos or laws of the primitive universe could be used. It was truly a land of no return. However, Feng Zichen not only cultivated the untainted Tao, but also the Tao of Chaos Demon God. Since the path of desolation was useless, he would change to another path. When this power from the primal chaos era appeared in Feng Zichen's body, the previously insufferably arrogant black energy began to disintegrate inch by inch. In the blink of an eye, it was completely destroyed. This place can isolate all kinds of power. It is just enough to hide from Dijun's eyes and ears. Here, I can prove the great Tao of stars. This is a rare opportunity. If I miss this opportunity, I can only wait for Dijun and Tai to fall if I want to prove the great Tao of stars. Just as Feng Zichen had thought, since he had already come to the ultimate, why would he need to prove the Khanate Sword Tao? He should first prove the Tao of stars. After all, the Tao of stars was his foundation. As for the Khanate Sword Tao, there was no hurry. It would not be too late to prove it after the Tao of stars was completed. A Zenith Heaven Golden Immortal could not only prove one great Tao. As long as he was strong enough, he could prove as many Tao as he wanted. No one would care anyway. Go. Feng Zichen flipped his hand, took out the Khanate Wind Spirit Pearl, and threw it at the Chaos Bead. This place was extremely hidden. There was no need to worry about causing any shocking commotion. It could be said to be extremely safe. Some shameful things could be done here. Buzz, buzz, buzz. After absorbing the Khanate Wind Spirit Pearl, the Chaos Bead trembled violently and erupted with an unprecedented light. Is this going to be promoted to a Khanate Cardinal Treasure? Looking at the Chaos Bead in front of him, Feng Zichen was a little excited. The commotion was stronger than the previous few times when he devoured the other Khanate numinous treasures. It gave him an extremely shocking feeling. A Khanate Cardinal Treasure. This was the top Dharma treasure of the primordial world. With a Khanate Cardinal Treasure in hand, even Daluo Jinxian could fight against a quasi-sage. It was clear how powerful it was. However, just as Feng Zichen thought that the Chaos Bead would be promoted to a Khanate Cardinal Treasure in one go, the commotion on its body suddenly stopped and slowly returned to normal. Is it not enough? Apart from the 44 Khanate divine restrictions on the Chaos Bead, there was another Khanate divine restriction that was faintly discernible, as if it would disappear at any time. However, the Khanate Wind Spirit Pearl did not have enough power and could not completely condense the 45th Khanate divine restriction. That was why the Chaos Bead could not be promoted to a Khanate Cardinal Treasure. It's about time. As long as I get the 24 Sea-Calming Divine Pearls from Xianqing, the Chaos Bead can be completely promoted to a Khanate Cardinal Treasure. Although he was a little disappointed, Feng Zichen adjusted his state in the blink of an eye. Xianqing still had the Sea-Calming Divine Pearls, which were prepared for the Chaos Bead. Sitting down cross-legged, Feng Zichen placed the Chaos Bead between his eyebrows and poured the power of his true spirit into it, trying to establish contact with his true spirit that was far away in Ziwei Star. In order to prove his Tao, Daluo Jinxian needed his true spirit and the great Tao to verify his Tao. However, his true spirit was in the Ziwei Tao embryo on Ziwei Star. He had to find a way to obtain it to prove his Tao. The Chaos Bead's predecessor was a Khanate Cardinal Treasure that was born in the great chaos outside the world. It was the incarnation of the great Tao of chaos and had endless power. Although the ruins of End could isolate the primordial world, it was helpless against such a supreme Dharma treasure from the great chaos. Following the connection, the Chaos Bead distorted endless space and descended directly inside Ziwei Star, in front of the Ziwei Tao embryo. As if sensing something, Feng Zichen's true spirit in the Ziwei Tao embryo opened its eyes and stepped out, returning to its original body through the Chaos Bead. After the true spirit entered his body, Feng Zichen's aura suddenly increased by 30%, and Khanate Taoist rhymes filled the air. Withdraw! Standing up, Feng Zichen first stretched his body, then suddenly put away the Chaos Bead. Instantly, the surrounding qi of End boiled and rushed into his body impatiently, crazily devouring his vitality. In the blink of an eye, Feng Zichen seemed to have experienced endless years and became extremely old. His black hair turned silver. Wrinkles began to appear on his handsome face, and a decaying aura appeared on his body, as if he would die at any time. Zhou out, the changes in his body did not cause Feng Zichen to panic. He calmed his mind and focused, circulating the 3 enclosures Tao scripture, mobilizing the Dharma power in his body, and activating all the divine apertures in his body. Kaboom! Dazzling divine light exploded from his body, turning into a vast sea of stars that hung in the air. It was extremely dazzling, with billions of stars flowing. Chapter 205. Activating the 3 enclosures Tao scripture to its limit. Feng Zichen raised his hand and swiped at the sea of stars. Immediately, the sea of stars shook and the three lights separated. The sun, moon, and stars appeared, forming a vast starry sky that enveloped Feng Zichen and isolated his connection with the ultimate. Then, the final qi stopped surging into Feng Zichen's body, and the changes in his body gradually stopped. Although he still looked extremely old, his life was no longer in danger. Turn. Feng Zichen formed a seal with both hands, and as the Khanate Dao aura spread, he pointed at Zhou and the sun, moon, and stars began to revolve. The sun rose and the moon set, and the stars revolved in a cycle that never stopped. Resplendent starlight appeared, deducing the Xuanqi of time and pushing the starry sky to revolve. Feng Zichen divided the three lights, setting the sun, moon, and stars, using the vast starry sky to derive the great Tao of space, revolving the sun, moon, and stars, pushing the boundless void, causing space to change from static to constantly change, deducing the great Tao of time. The combination of the two could be said to be the great Tao of time and space. This was the Tao of the stars that Feng Zichen redefined based on the star, demon gods, great Tao of the stars, and the star Tao of the primordial world. It was a Tao of the stars that belonged to him. Zhou pushed the operation of the universe's space-time and explained the mysteries of the great Tao of time and space. Wisps of starlight gathered behind his head, forming a colorful wheel of light. It was decorated with the sun, moon, and stars, and there were Khanate runes shining, flowing with the aura of space-time. This was the space-time wheel, the supreme divine power of the space-time Tao. It could reverse time and trace the past, predict the future, and reverse fate. It was the most magical. Boom! As soon as the space-time wheel was formed, it began to rotate in a counterclockwise direction. The power of time and space surged out, all of it acting on Feng Zichen, reversing his time. With every rotation of the space-time wheel, Feng Zichen's appearance became younger. After it rotated 9 times, Feng Zichen completely returned to his appearance when he first came to the ultimate. The final qi in his body had completely dissipated. Buzz! The anomaly here attracted the attention of the sinkhole's will. Immediately, an indescribable throbbing appeared. Even the void trembled. The final qi completely boiled, forming a terrifying energy tide that slammed towards Feng Zichen. Galactic cosmic light array rise. As soon as he finished speaking, the sun, moon, and stars revolved in unison, and they transformed into an enormous formation that transformed into the starry sky of the universe and completely sealed the space in the surroundings. As the formation operated, a silver river appeared in the starry sky. It was dazzling like a flowing ray of light. It was beautiful and dreamlike. It was the Milky Way, the cosmic light, a supreme formation that Feng Zichen had evolved from his own Tao of the stars, the Milky Way cosmic light formation, using the sun, the moon, and the stars to drive the operation of time and space, to evolve the light of the universe, to destroy space, to wear away time, and to completely erase the concept of all existence, causing the world to return to the state of nothingness. The final qi only ended everything, causing it to return to its most primitive state. Clearly, the Milky Way cosmic light was more domineering. It directly started from the root and erased the concept of all existence. As such, the final qi was no match for the Milky Way cosmic light. Wherever the Milky Way cosmic light passed, the void would be cleared and all things would cease to exist. However, there was no main formation item in the end. Now, the operation of the Milky Way cosmic light array was supported by Feng Zichen alone. Every moment consumed a large amount of his dermic powers. If not for the Tree of World, he would have been drained dry. It's time to prove my Tao. With the Milky Way cosmic light array, the sinkhole was temporarily not a threat. Feng Zichen could prove his Tao with peace of mind. As for the sinkhole, all Taoists did not exist, and the laws did not appear. All connections with the outside world were cut off. It could not verify with the Tao of the stars or even prove one's Tao. Feng Zichen expressed that he did not care at all. His path was different from the cultivators of the primordial world. He walked the path of proving his Tao with strength. He used Zhouxing as the foundation to refine Panga's body. He gathered supreme dermic powers to forcefully shatter the endless vacuum and prove his Tao. He did not need to verify the great Tao of heaven and earth. Besides, he might not achieve his Tao in the primordial world. This was the sinkhole, the exhaust port of the primordial world. There was a passage leading to the chaos outside. With the chaos bead protecting him, he might be able to try to head to the chaos outside and prove his Tao there. The Tao of the stars in the primordial world had always been controlled by Dijun and Tai. Outsiders could not spy on it. The sinkhole was a part of the primordial world after all. Dijun and Tai could not detect his Tao here. However, once Feng Zichen left this place, the aura of the great Tao would spread out and be sensed by the two. At that time, he would have to face the fury of Dijun and Tai. His chances of survival were slim. However, the chaos outside the primordial world was different. It was even vaster and more advanced than the primordial world. It was the origin of all worlds. Achieving the Tao, there was the most ancient and primitive great Tao. There was supreme fortune, and one's strength was even stronger than achieving the Tao in the primordial world. Now, Feng Zichen had the right time, place, and people. He would not be satisfied if he did not go to the chaos outside the primordial world. Ha! With a deep shout, Feng Zichen erupted with all his strength. Suddenly, a powerful aura surged around his body, releasing dazzling divine light. Illusory stars appeared, and a total of 129,600 stars slowly rose from his body. Among those illusory stars, the 365 main stars were the largest and the brightest. The other stars revolved around them. Zhouxing, spin for me. Feng Zichen made a series of hand seals and activated the Zhouxing, making them follow their instincts and slowly rotate. Then he calmed his mind and focused. In his sea of consciousness, he visualized Panga's Taoist rhymes and reflected all his understanding of Panga's Taoist physique in the Zhouxing to speed up their rotation. Rumble. The Zhouxing suddenly sped up. Tracks appeared between them, connecting them. It was like a diagram of the great Tao. It was mysterious and unpredictable, triggering an inexplicable power. This was Panga's meridian diagram. It was a great secret, an opportunity hidden in the primordial world. It was also what Feng Zichen relied on to reverse engineer Panga's Taoist physique. As the Zhouxing rotated faster and faster, Panga's meridian diagram became clearer and clearer. A hazy Taoist shadow gradually appeared, exuding a power that could suppress the heavens as if the great Tao had arrived in person. It was Panga's shadow, although this shadow was extremely faint, like a shadow that could not be seen clearly at all. But with its appearance, the entire ultimate shook. An inexplicable aura surged toward Panga's shadow. This was the remnant aura of Pangu in the ultimate. Now that it felt the existence of Pangu's shadow, it naturally felt a sense of familiarity and spontaneously gathered toward it. The originally extremely illusory Panga's shadow could not help but become more solid after absorbing the Panga's aura in the ultimate. It became clearer, and the aura of the great Tao spread. Chapter 206. All sorts of mysterious insights gushed out from Panga's phantom and reached Feng Zichen's heart, allowing him to gain a deeper understanding of Panga's Tao body. I didn't expect that condensing Panga's phantom in the sinkhole would have such benefits. What a pleasant surprise! Feng Zichen did not expect this change. One had to know that Panga's Tao body was the highest achievement of the God-fiend Tao. The deeper one's understanding of it, the stronger Feng Zichen would be. As a result, his chances of going to the outer realm chaos to prove his Tao had increased. The outer realm chaos was extremely dangerous. If a cultivator of the primordial world did not reach Daluo Jinshin's realm, they would die without a doubt. Even if a zenith heaven golden immortal went there without the protection of a supreme treasure, he would die if he was careless. Only a quasi-sage expert could travel freely. Good, the heavens are really helping me. Let me go to the outer realm chaos to prove my Tao. With Feng Zichen's current strength, he was still hesitating whether he should really go to the outer realm chaos to prove his Tao. Now that he had the help of the sinkhole, he made up his mind. The path of the great Tao was rugged and could be said to be a disaster at every step. Without the spirit to strive forward, how could one reach the end of the great Tao? With this thought, Feng Zichen's body shook and turned into a ball of Hongmeng Qi. It wrapped around his true spirit and merged with Panga's phantom. Immediately, the Hongmeng Qi filled the body of Panga's phantom, causing it to solidify. Its appearance gradually revealed itself. It was Feng Zichen's appearance. This power, so strong. Feeling the power contained in Panga's Tao body, Feng Zichen was a little shocked. A casual strike could shatter the vacuum and destroy the great Tao. With a thought, countless small worlds could be born and destroyed. Moreover, this was not an illusion. It was a power that truly existed. Feng Zichen even had a feeling that, as long as he was willing, he could control the entire sinkhole. With the thought of experimenting, Feng Zichen's mind stirred. The power of true spirit surged out and connected with the will of the sinkhole. The next moment, he felt like he had become the master of the sinkhole. Everything here was under his control. The entire sinkhole no longer had any secrets from him. Everything was presented before his eyes. What's that? Feng Zichen saw a wondrous place in the depths of the sinkhole. Over there, the aura of the great Tao pervaded the air. Chaotic, fiendish energy surged, forcefully pushing aside the energy of the end, preventing it from approaching this place. Even the will of the sinkhole was unable to come into contact with this place. Whatever. Attaining the Tao is more important. If I stay here, I won't be able to escape. I'd better wait until I've successfully verified my Tao before coming back to investigate. Although he was curious, it was already a critical moment for him to attain the Tao. There was no time to delay. Feng Zichen could not be bothered to investigate the abnormality of this place. He immediately took a step forward and arrived at the lowest part of the sinkhole. There was a huge pitch-black door here. Strange runes were engraved on it. They were densely packed and emitted the aura of the end. That was the door of the sinkhole, a supreme treasure of the sinkhole. At the same time, it was also a treasure of the primordial world. Behind it was the outer realm chaos. This was the passageway to the outer realm chaos in the primordial world. Every once in a while, the door of the sinkhole would automatically open, spewing out the waste and impure qi that had accumulated in the sinkhole for many years into the outer realm chaos. It had not been long since the last time the door of the sinkhole opened. The waste and impure qi accumulated in the sinkhole was not enough to shake the door. Therefore, the door of the sinkhole was naturally tightly shut. However, with the help of Panga's power, Feng Zichen had temporarily become the master of the sinkhole. He had the authority to mobilize all the power of the sinkhole. It was extremely simple to open the door. Door of the sinkhole, open! Mobilizing the power of the sinkhole, Feng Zichen pointed at the door of the sinkhole. Immediately, the surrounding qi of end swarmed over and forcefully pushed open the door of the sinkhole. Let's go. Before the door of the sinkhole completely opened, Feng Zichen took out the chaos bead and leaped out through a crack that had just been opened. He left the primordial world and arrived at the outer realm chaos. Bang! As soon as Feng Zichen left, the gathered qi of end automatically dispersed, and the door of the sinkhole closed. At the same time, the river of destiny also changed. With Feng Zichen's departure, his fate that had been hidden by the destiny of the human race suddenly disappeared. The trajectory of his fate had also disappeared. It was as if there was no such person in the primordial world. It was Feng Zichen's aura that had completely disappeared from the primordial world. The river of destiny had sensed it and erased his fate. This was also good. It would save Feng Zichen the trouble of rushing to the river of destiny after returning from the outer realm chaos and transcending fate. The outer realm chaos was chaotic. There was no upper or lower, no space, no time, no yin and yang, the 5 elements, and no past or future. There was only one eternity and chaos. After Feng Zichen, who had lived in the primordial world for many years, came here, all his knowledge changed. It became unfamiliar, so he couldn't adapt for a while and was a little confused. Is this the true chaos? It's really magical. It feels very different from the primordial world. After a long time, with the help of the chaos bead, Feng Zichen gradually adapted to the strange laws of the outer realm chaos. No wonder the ancient desolate world is isolated from the chaos outside. If it was exposed to the chaos, it wouldn't take long for it to be destroyed by the chaos energy. Looking around, Feng Zichen was a little surprised. Around him, there were countless streams of chaos qi flowing wantonly, colliding with each other and destroying everything in sight. Each stream of chaos qi had the power of Daluo Jinxian's full-strength attack. If all these chaos qi were to hit one place, it would make one scalp tingle. Feng Zichen tentatively drew in a trace of chaos qi and wanted to refine it. However, as soon as the chaos qi entered his body, it was absorbed by Panga's Tao body without any resistance. With a thought, Feng Zichen continued to draw in chaos qi into his body. He saw that Panga's Tao body did not reject it. No matter how much chaos qi he drew in, he could absorb it all. But I forgot. Pangu is the strongest chaos demon god. To him, absorbing the aura of chaos is an innate instinct. How could it hurt him? With a laugh, Feng Zichen put away the chaos bead and directly touched the chaos qi with his body. Immediately, the chaos qi in the surroundings surged. However, facing the chaos qi, he did not feel any discomfort. Instead, he felt like a fish in water. It was as if his body was extremely familiar with this place and even vaguely felt a sense of intimacy. Panga's aura is too strong in this body, which is extremely unfavorable for my future. It seems that if I want to prove my Tao, I have to get rid of these influences. Feeling the strangeness in his body, Feng Zichen frowned. Chapter 207. This sense of familiarity came from Panga's Tao body, not him. After all, this was the first time he had come to the outer realm's chaos, so there was a sense of familiarity there. What I want to cultivate is a Panga's Tao body that belongs to me, not a Panga's body that relies on Panga's remaining aura. Otherwise, would the Tao that I attain be Panga's Tao or my Tao? Those who learn from me will live. Those who imitate me will die. If I attain the Tao with Panga's Tao and Pangu reappears one day, I'm afraid that he can assimilate me with a single thought and turn me into his incarnation. If that's the case, wouldn't my cultivation be a gift to someone else? The changes in Panga's Tao body made Feng Zichen feel an uncontrollable sense of fear. Could a body that was not under his control really be considered his own body? Feng Zichen, who had been excited about absorbing Panga's aura, was now filled with endless regret. Wasn't he just looking for trouble? Originally, the aura of Panga's Tao body, which had been derived from Zhouxing, was incomparably pure. It completely belonged to him, and he could use it to attain the Tao. However, he had taken an unnecessary step and absorbed Panga's remaining aura. Although he had obtained some benefits, it also caused his Tao body to become impure. It was tainted with Panga's aura and gradually transformed into Panga's body. Fortunately, he had discovered it early. If he had directly attained the Tao without paying attention, his future would have been miserable. He would have always been influenced by Pangu and would not be able to change even if he wanted to. Even if Pangu reappeared in the future and was merciful and could not bear to refine him into an incarnation. However, his Tao was a branch of Pangu's Tao. It would spontaneously move closer to him and be influenced by him, causing him to gradually become his incarnation. This situation was completely spontaneous and irreversible. Pangu could not stop it. At this point, I'm not in a hurry to prove my Tao. I should first erase the Pangu's aura in my body. Sitting down cross-legged, Feng Zichen opened his mouth and sucked in all the chaotic energy in the surroundings into his body. He started to temper his body inch by inch in an attempt to obliterate Pangu's aura. However, Pangu's cultivation level had already reached an unimaginable level. Even the remnants of his aura contained great power. As a result, it was extremely strenuous for Feng Zichen to refine. Even after exhausting all of his strength and spending several years, he still couldn't refine even a trace of it. No, this method is too inefficient. By the time I finish refining Pangu's aura, the shaman cataclysm would be over. Realizing that this method was useless, Feng Zichen had a thought and began to visualize the 5 elements, demonic gods, in his sea of consciousness. In an instant, a 5-colored light bloomed from his body, and 5 phantoms of demonic gods appeared. Turn. Pointing at the 5 elements, demonic gods, Feng Zichen activated his force of true spirit to push the 5 elements, demonic gods, making them rotate according to the principle of the cycle of the 5 elements. Rumble. As the 5 elements rotated, fortune was born. As the 5 elements, demonic gods, rotated, a 5-colored millstone gradually formed. It attracted the power of the great path from the unseen world and crushed towards Feng Zichen. Intense pain. Unbearable pain. As the 5-colored millstone pressed down, Feng Zichen felt as if his body was being crushed. He was in so much pain that he couldn't help but cry out. However, the effect was also shocking. As the 5-colored millstone rotated, wisps of Pangu's aura flew out from his body and gathered into a ball, floating in the air. At the same time as the 5-colored millstone rotated, a large amount of chaotic energy was refined into his body, constantly strengthening his physical body. As time passed, Feng Zichen's physical body became stronger and stronger. He gradually adapted to the power of the 5-colored millstone and no longer felt pain. As for Pangu's aura in his body, it was almost wiped out. Furnace of heaven and earth, come out! The disappearance of Pangu's aura made Feng Zichen heave a sigh of relief. However, to be on the safe side, he decided to add fuel to the fire and continue refining. However, the furnace of heaven and earth belonged to the untainted land after all. It was inevitable that it was not acclimatized to the chaos. As soon as it appeared, it showed signs of collapsing. Tut! With a soft exclamation, Feng Zichen spat out a stream of chaotic energy, which turned into countless chaotic runes and imprinted on the furnace of heaven and earth, stabilizing it. At the same time, the 5-colored millstone transformed into the phantoms of the 5 elements, demonic gods again, and imprinted on the furnace of heaven and earth, increasing its power. Then the chaos bead and the tree of world appeared one after another in the chaos. Together, they attracted the chaotic energy in all directions and turned it into chaotic fire, burning towards the furnace of heaven and earth. Huff! Being in the furnace of heaven and earth, the intense pain came again. It was so painful that Feng Zichen could not even speak clearly. He could only make muffled noises. This time he made up his mind and swore to completely remove Pangu's aura from his body. Therefore, every time the furnace of heaven and earth's power failed to work, he called out a mark of the chaos demonic gods and imprinted it on the furnace of heaven and earth. After an unknown period of time, the furnace of heaven and earth could no longer withstand the power of the chaos demonic gods. With a boom, it turned into countless fragments and disappeared. Feng Zichen also woke up because of this. At this moment, he was completely different from before. After this round of refinement, his previous born Taoism aptitude and Panga's Taoism aptitude had merged perfectly. There was no longer any distinction between them. Now he could be called the Panga Zichin clan. Moreover, the Panga's aura in his body had completely disappeared and would no longer affect him. After delaying for so long, it's time to affirm my Tao. After resolving the hidden dangers in his body, Feng Zichin finally began to affirm his Tao. At this moment, brilliant light bloomed on Feng Zichin's body, and the laws of the great Tao manifested. There were many strange phenomena. In the end, these strange phenomena all gathered in one place and turned into a purple star. It slowly rose from the top of his head and went straight to the origin of chaos. This was the Emperor Star, which was also the Tao of the stars. It was formed by Feng Zichin's Taoist rhymes and was his current highest achievement. In the chaos, countless great Tao manifested and attacked the Emperor Star, trying to shoot it down and not allow it to go to the origin of chaos. Blocking the Tao's tribulation, Feng Zichin was not surprised by this. There was a Tao's tribulation that blocked the Tao in the primitive world. Naturally, there was one in the chaos. However, most of the chaos demon gods were suppressed under Mount Buzhou by Pangu. How much strength could the corresponding great Tao exert now? Sinking his mind into the Emperor Star, Feng Zichin controlled it and bombarded it with many great Taos one after another, verifying each other, extracting the essence, finding the flaws, and constantly polishing his own great Tao to make it more perfect. In this way, the Emperor's Star became stronger and more perfect. In the end, it broke through the blockade of many great Taos and came to the origin of chaos. As long as he imprinted the great Tao here, Daluo Jingxian would be successful. Now, most of the chaos demon gods were suppressed under Mount Buzhou by Pangu. The few remaining chaos demon gods were also working hard to restore their strength. No one came to stop Feng Zichin from affirming his Tao. Walking forward, he imprinted the Tao of the stars on the origin of chaos. Daluo Jingxian was successful. Chapter 208. In the chaos, there was no passage of time, no past and no future. There was only the present. Therefore, in the chaos, proving one's Tao was eternal and unique. There was no need to shrink one's timeline like the primordial world and extend one's great Tao to the past and future. Only then could one reach the realm of eternal proof. In this way, as long as the chaos is not destroyed, I will not die. Seeing that his great Tao was completely imprinted on the origin of the chaos and was no longer separated from it, Feng Zichin's heart was filled with excitement. Similar to the primordial world, by imprinting one's great Tao on its origin, one could be with it. Even if one died accidentally, one could rely on the great Tao imprint left here to be resurrected. The primordial world might be destroyed one day. However, after witnessing the greatness of the chaos, Feng Zichin really could not imagine what kind of power could destroy it. Even Pangu did not have the ability to do so. This also meant that even if the primordial world was destroyed, he could still survive with the chaos behind him. However, the primordial world's method of proving one's Tao, Daluo Jingxian, is somewhat similar to the characteristics of the creatures of chaos. Retracting the timeline and turning the past and future into the present was clearly an imitation of the characteristics of the creatures of chaos that only existed in the present. Not only that, the general process of the primordial world's cultivation was to constantly move closer to the creatures of chaos and gradually possess their characteristics. That's true. The essence of cultivation is to explore the true meaning of the great Tao. And the chaos is the source of all things. The higher one's cultivation level, the closer one's essence is to the chaos so that they can better come into contact with the great Tao. In this way, I have reached the sky in one step. I directly proved my Tao in the chaos and received the baptism of the great Tao. I have some characteristics of the chaos demon god. Compared to Daluo Jingxian, who proved his Tao in the primordial world, I have many more advantages. Thinking of this, Feng Zichen was a little excited. He was not sure about the other benefits for the time being. However, he could still sense the most obvious benefit. The moment he proved his Tao in the chaos, the future of the primordial world completely disappeared. In other words, when Feng Zichen returned to the primordial world, there would only be traces of his past and present in the river of time and space. The future would be empty and there would be no traces left. One had to know that in the primordial world, the most important thing to achieve a primordial chaos Tao fruit that was comparable to a saint was to transcend the river of space-time. Only by severing one's past, present, and future and completely disappearing from the river of time and space could one achieve primordial chaos and attain the supreme Tao fruit. Of the three bodies, the past was constant, while the present moved with the world. It was not difficult to sever the two. Only the future was unfathomable and unknown, making him feel like he didn't know where to start. However, Feng Zichen's future had long disappeared in the river of space-time. Severing the future was naturally incomparably difficult for others. However, to him, he could sever it with a single thought. If news of such benefits were to spread, it was unknown how many people would be envious. However, it's still too dangerous for desolate wilderness cultivators to head to the primordial chaos to verify their Tao. Thinking of the dangers of the primordial chaos, Feng Zichen could not help but feel a lingering fear. Although he did not encounter any danger this time and succeeded easily, he thought that it was extremely easy to prove his Tao in the primordial chaos. In fact, his success in proving his Tao this time was completely due to Panga's strength. Even if he did not like Panga's aura, Feng Zichen had to admit that if not for the aura of Pangu in the Void of End that strengthened the power of Panga's Tao body, he would probably have been devoured by the violent chaos chi as soon as he arrived in the primordial chaos. Sigh. This opportunity is really heaven-defying. It gives me an extremely unreal feeling, as if I'm dreaming. Recalling what had happened recently, Feng Zichen vaguely felt that it was an illusion. These fortuitous encounters were linked to one another. It was as if there was a mastermind behind the scenes that was silently pushing everything forward, allowing him to continue moving forward. However, now that I've become the Daluo Jingxian, regardless of whether the mastermind is good or bad, it won't be so easy to plot against me. The current Feng Zichen could be said to be full of confidence. He was no longer as powerless as before. After all, he was already the Daluo Jingxian. In any era, he would be considered an expert and had the qualifications to play chess. After taking another look at the origin of chaos, Feng Zichen turned around and left. He rode the Emperor Star and returned to his main body. Immediately, the power of the great Tao appeared in the chaos, forming a huge furnace that enveloped his body. With the chaos chi as the fire and the great Tao as the firewood, he refined his body. This was the baptism of the great Tao, the blessing that the great Tao gave to those who had achieved the Tao. After completing this step, Feng Zichen could be considered the true Daluo Jingxian. Being in the furnace of the great Tao, Feng Zichen only felt that everything about him was becoming stronger and sublimating. There was an immortal and indestructible Tao circulating, emitting an eternal and unique aura. Heaven and earth furnace, go! Seeing the runes on the great Tao furnace, Feng Zichen's heart stirred. He used the heaven and earth furnace and compared it one by one, constantly changing its structure and transforming it into a chaotic, magical power. At the same time, he took out all of his spiritual treasures and accepted the baptism of the great Tao with him. Such an opportunity could only be encountered by chance. He must not miss it. Moreover, in the end, Feng Zichen used his magical powers one by one, verifying them with the great Tao around him, gradually changing their essence and increasing their power. In the chaos, there was no concept of time and space. It was as if only an instant had passed, but it was also as if the world had changed. Feng Zichen only felt an unparalleled power erupt from his body and spread out in all directions. Boom! The terrifying power suddenly erupted. First, it shattered the great Tao furnace into pieces. Then it continued to spread out, setting off boundless waves and triggering a small, chaotic tide. I am from the Pangazichen clan, and I am Daluo Jinxian today. I hope the great Tao can enlighten me. As if he was enlightened, Feng Zichen suddenly stood up and shouted. As soon as his voice fell, the great Tao immediately reacted. The chaos shook inexplicably, and golden flowers sprinkled down. The laws manifested and stretched for billions of miles. Immediately, 2 divine runes of the great Tao appeared between Feng Zichen's eyebrows. They were the 2 words Zichen, containing inexplicable power. This was his identity certificate. The great Tao recognized his identity and specially bestowed it. From this moment on, Feng Zichen was a Khanate god-fiend born in the chaos. He was incomparably noble, and his status was second only to the chaos demon god, compared to the Khanate god-fiends of the primordial world. Except for the top few, they all surpassed him. Moreover, this was an identity recognized by the great Tao. No one could deny it. Suddenly, a Tao of one origin fell and evolved into 129,600 Khanate runes. They merged with the chaos energy and formed a rune seal. Chapter 209. This is, while Feng Zichen was puzzled, the talisman paused slightly and fell into his hand. In the next moment, a message appeared in his heart, allowing him to understand the origin of this treasure. The One Yuan Dao talisman was formed by the innate rune general outline and contained the Tao of innate rune evolution. It was an innate spiritual treasure born from the chaos and was of the highest quality. It had 41 innate divine restrictions. This was a gift from the great Tao to Feng Zichen after he became an innate god fiend as a Tao protector. The chaos was different from the untainted land. In the untainted land, there was abundant, innate spiritual qi and endless creation and life, which could breed a large number of innate life forms. In the chaos, there was chaos qi everywhere. They were violent and unpredictable, entangled with each other, and stirred the chaos into a mess. It was full of danger and extremely difficult to breed life forms. As such, every life form born in the primal chaos was exceptionally rare. Favored by the great Tao, they were the treasures of the chaos. At the moment of their birth, they would be blessed by the great Tao. Although Feng Zichen was not an innate god-fiend born from the chaos, his identity was recognized by the great Tao and he could enjoy the same treatment. It's a pity that I'm not a chaos god-fiend. Otherwise, the Dharma treasure given by the great Tao would not be an innate spiritual treasure, but a chaos spiritual treasure. After accepting the One Yuan Dao talisman, Feng Zichen was still not satisfied. Compared to the innate god-fiend, the chaos god-fiend was the true son of the great Tao. As soon as he was born, he had the strength of Daluo Jinxian and was accompanied by a chaos spiritual treasure. Most of the spiritual items born in the chaos were a level higher than those born in the untainted land. Therefore, the chaos spiritual treasure was a Dharma treasure comparable to an innate spiritual treasure. However, his identity as an innate god-fiend was given by the great Tao because of Pangu. It was simply wishful thinking to want to become a chaos god-fiend. The 3 pure ones formed by Panga's primordial spirit and the 12 ancestral sorcerers formed by his essence blood were only innate divine beings. They were still far from becoming a chaos god-fiend. He was a lucky guy who accidentally got Panga's aura and could become an innate god-fiend. It was impossible for him to go further. This item can be given to Xianqing so that he can establish the innate talisman Tao and occupy the position of the talisman ancestor. In the future, when the immortal Tao flourishes, he can also rely on this to become a venerable immortal. At the same time, I can use this treasure to exchange for the sea-calming divine pearl from Xianqing and upgrade it to the chaos bead. The appearance of the 1 yuan Tao talisman could be said to have solved Feng Zichen's urgent problem. Initially, he was still thinking about how to obtain the sea-calming divine pearl from Xianqing. The appearance of this treasure provided him with a good method. The sea-calming divine pearl was a gift from the Grand Master of Heaven to Xianqing. If it disappeared from Xianqing's hands for no reason, it would inevitably arouse suspicion. Bartering was different. It was a completely reasonable method. Even if word got out, no one would think it was a problem. After all, it was not uncommon for friends to exchange numinous treasures in the primordial world. Moreover, the first origin Tao talisman recorded the general outline of the innate talisman Tao and was a natural treasure of the Tao of talismans. With Xianqing's ability, he could use this item to establish the talisman Tao lineage. In this way, Xianqing would be the future master of talisman Tao. When the talisman Tao developed in the future, he could at least obtain the quasi-saint Tao fruit and become a quasi-saint expert. A quasi-saint level clone could provide Feng Zichen with a lot of help and solve a lot of problems. Rumble. A group of stars appeared. They were dazzling and illuminated the chaos. Golden Tao lotuses appeared and took root in the chaos, slowly blooming. There was a peaceful aura emitted from the Tao lotuses, calming the violent chaos qi, making this place temporarily a safe place. This was the phenomenon of Feng Zichen's Tao attainment. Daluo Jingxian was the incarnation of the great Tao. Anyone who entered this realm would have a phenomenon appear. Congratulations! If such a phenomenon appeared in the primordial world, it would definitely alarm the entire world and attract the attention of countless mighty figures. However, this was the chaos outside the world. It was truly boundless. Although his Tao attainment phenomenon was vast, it was not even considered a wave in the entire chaos. But it could not alarm the chaos demon gods hidden somewhere in the chaos. So powerful! Trying to move his hands and feet, Feng Zichen found that his body was full of power. It seemed that he could fight Daluo Jingxian with just his body without using any Dharma power or divine powers. Taking out the Zichen sword, Feng Zichen directly slashed at his left arm. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of metal clashing was heard. Feng Zichen's left arm, which was holding the sword, was slightly numb from the impact. At the same time, there was a slight pain in his right arm. Yes, that's right. It was just a slight pain. He was not injured. So powerful. The strength of my body is probably not weaker than an inferior grade, connate, spiritual treasure. Touching his body, Feng Zichen's heart was full of excitement. The Zichen sword was now an acquired cardinal treasure. Its power was comparable to incarnate spiritual treasure. Even if Feng Zichen did not use Dharma power, that sword slash could easily cut an acquired spiritual treasure. But this sword slash did not even leave a trace on his body. From this, it could be inferred that the strength of his body was far beyond an acquired spiritual treasure. It was close to incarnate spiritual treasure. Using strength to attain the Tao is indeed the strongest Tao attainment method in the chaos. Daluo Jingxian's body is comparable to incarnate spiritual treasure. Primordial chaos Daluo Jingxian's body is probably comparable to incarnate cardinal treasure. Then Penga's body is comparable to a connate cardinal treasure, or even stronger. Using his own situation as a basis, Feng Zichen inferred in his heart. He could not help but come to a conclusion that shocked him. Now I am more and more certain that Penga did not die. Instead, he is hiding or is hindered by something, causing him to be unable to appear. Pangu had the strongest body in history. Feng Zichen did not believe that there was anything in this world that could kill him. However, Pangu was still too far away from him. He was an existence that he could not touch or understand. Whether he still existed or not had little to do with him now, and it was not something that he should be concerned about. Right now, Feng Zichen had a more important thing to do. Promote Zichen's sword to incarnate spiritual treasure. Zichen's sword had accumulated a lot of experience. Just now, it had been baptized by the Great Path, causing the connate Taoist rhyme on its body to become even stronger. It was only one step away from being promoted to incarnate spiritual treasure. Coincidentally, Feng Zichen still had a ball of connate wind origin left behind after the chaos bead devoured the connate spiritual treasure. It could help Zichen's sword complete the last step. Go! Feng Zichen flipped his hand and took out a green ball of light. He cast a divine ability and injected it into Zichen's sword. Before that, the purple imperial sword had already absorbed the connate origin of heaven and earth, the origin of water, and the origin of fire. Now, when the connate wind origin entered its body, the four connate great elements resonated and produced an inexplicable change. Chapter 210. The earth, fire, water, and wind surged on the Zichen sword. The power of the world was born as if it was going to create a new world. Boom! Amidst the shocking explosion, the violet imperial sword shattered. The sword shattered into countless pieces and was obliterated by the chaotic qi. Only the natural Tao mechanism remained, and it was tightly entangled with the four elements. Then a new world was born. There were flashes of lightning and stars. All kinds of Tao principles appeared and strengthened the world. This was the connate origin that the Zichen sword had devoured. Now that it was at a critical moment, the connate origin appeared one by one and helped it evolve further. As the world became more complete, the laws of heaven and earth began to operate. Suddenly, the chaotic qi in the surroundings was absorbed and transformed into the purest connate origin. It merged with the laws of the world and gradually gave birth to a connate sword embryo. What a treasure! The sword embryo was covered with runes and connate Tao principles. It was obviously an extraordinary item. With a thought, Feng Zichen transferred all his understanding of the sword Tao into the sword embryo. This way, when the Zichen sword was born, it would become the sword Tao's Tao instrument and grow with the sword Tao. It would be the most powerful Dharma treasure of the sword Tao. Boom! The world evolved to its limit and suddenly shattered. The origin of the world began to shrink and enter the connate sword embryo. A dazzling sword ray flashed. The Zichen sword broke the sword embryo and reappeared in the world. In an instant, a terrifying sword qi swept in all directions and shredded the chaotic qi. The earth, fire, water, and wind appeared and formed the world again. The Zichen sword was born from heaven and earth and was nurtured by the origin of the world. It could be said that it had endless opportunities. The postnatal qi in its body turned into connate Tao principles and completely reverted from postnatal to connate. It was promoted to a superior grade connate spiritual treasure and contained 36 connate divine seals. Great! With this sword, I'm more confident of establishing the connate sword Tao. Feng Zichen couldn't help but exclaim excitedly as he took the Zichen sword and sensed the Tao principles on it. This was not a joke. Feng Zichen often used the Zichen sword to fight against his enemies, causing the Zichen sword to be inseparable from the way of the sword. His entire body was filled with the way of the sword. Now that the Zichen sword had turned into a connate spirit treasure, the wisp of sword Tao Qi had also transformed into a connate Qi Qi, allowing Feng Zichen to peek into part of the mysteries of the connate sword Tao. He also had some ideas on how to go against the Xiantian Sword Dao. The primal chaos is really a land of treasures. I don't know when I'll be able to come here again. It was a coincidence that he was able to enter the great chaos this time. Otherwise, with the barrier of heaven and earth, one would not be able to leave the primordial wilderness before reaching the quasi-sage realm. It was unknown how long it would take for him to break through to the sage-to-be level. This was a rare opportunity, so Feng Zichen planned to cultivate here for a period of time, organize his gains, and solve some small problems at the same time. Come out. He pointed at the chaos bead, and 2 rays of light flew out. They were 2 connate Dao embryos, the yin-yang Dao embryo and the tripartite Dao embryo. These 2 Dao embryos had been in the chaos bead for many years, but they had not come out. Feng Zichen could not help but feel a little anxious. Today, taking advantage of the special environment of the chaos, he planned to give birth to these 2 connate Dao embryos. Chaos array rise. Forming a Dao seal, Feng Zichen activated the chaos bead and set up the chaos array. Connate Dao diagrams flew out one after another and overlapped with each other, forming a great Dao divine diagram. It slowly spread out in the chaos and absorbed the chaos qi from all directions. Among these 10 Dao diagrams, after the first Yuan Dao diagram and the 5 elements Dao diagram, the 6 directions Dao diagram merged with the 6 directions divine clock, completely turning from illusion to reality, causing the power of the chaos array to multiply. The 6 directions divine clock was a supreme grade connate spirit treasure that Feng Zichen had obtained from the primordial ruins. However, it had long been shattered, causing its grade to drop. After being nurtured by the chaos bead and the world tree, it had barely recovered to the superior grade and could not be improved any further. However, that was enough. It was enough to be used to preside over the chaos array. Rumble. As the array operated, streams of chaos qi were refined and turned into the purest connate 2 elements qi and connate 6 directions qi. They poured into the 2 elements Dao embryos and the 6 directions divine embryo endlessly, accelerating their evolution. Not only that, but in the other illusory connate Dao diagrams, there was also a corresponding connate qi being born. It was constantly evolving, as if it was about to transform into a Dao embryo and nurture a connate spirit treasure. Noticing this scene, Feng Zichen was delighted. He used the connate 8 trigrams and silently calculated. Sigh. What a pity. After a while, Feng Zichen sighed. In his calculations, if the chaos array continued to operate about 100 million years later, 5 superior grade connate spirit treasures would be born, causing the chaos array to be completely perfected. However, how could Feng Zichen wait for 100 million years? This method was useless, not to mention 100 million years. He did not even want to wait for 10,000 years. Tree of World, go. Feng Zichen used his magical power and moved the Tree of World to the center of the chaos array. He used the power of the world hanging down from its body to replace his own magic power to activate the chaos array. Suddenly, the chaos array erupted with all its strength. The great path divine diagram expanded and absorbed more chaos qi. The refining power also increased. Every breath, a large amount of chaos qi was refined. As a result, the 2 elements Dao embryos and the tripartite Dao embryos could not absorb so much chaos qi for a while. Swallow. Feng Zichen's heart stirred. The surplus chaos qi surged toward him, constantly baptizing his body. However, he did not enter cultivation. Instead, he took out the Hongming Daozhong. There was still a connate ferocious beast at the level of Daluo Jinxian in it that needed to be dealt with. Fellow Taoist Huanzun, your death tribulation. It's here. Feng Zichen took back the shadow of Mount Buzhou and lifted the suppression power of the Hongmeng Daozhong. Where is this? What death tribulation? Huan Zun suddenly came back to his senses. For a moment, he was still a little confused. When he heard Feng Zichen shout, he could not help but have some doubts in his heart. But immediately he reacted. Here, it's the outer realm chaos. This is impossible. With the barrier of heaven and earth, how could you, a Daluo Jinxian, leave the untainted land and come to the outer realm chaos? The familiarity that originated from the bloodline made Huan Zun recognize this place. In addition to being frightened, he shouted at Feng Zichen in disbelief. The chaos was the graveyard of Daluo Jinxian. If he accidentally fell into it, causing his true spirit to be unable to return to the untainted land, then even if he died tragically, he would not be able to resurrect in the untainted land. As such, Feng Zichen's purpose in bringing him here was self-evident. How could Huan Zun not be afraid? How could he not be shocked? Fellow Taoist, you are a fiend god born from the essence and blood of the Chaos Demon God. And this is the birthplace of the Chaos Demon God. Who knows, you might run into them here. With a smile, Feng Zichen said to Huan Zun, Chapter 211. Shut up. You little brat, you've gone too far. Today I'll fight you to the death. The chaos was so vast that the probability of encountering a chaos demon god in the chaos was even lower than encountering Pangu in the untainted land. It was simply impossible. Moreover, with the illusion god's current state, he wouldn't be able to last long in the chaos. A single tide of chaos would be enough to take his life. Either way, he would die. Therefore, the illusion god erupted and ignited his innate origin. With unparalleled power, he charged towards Feng Zichen. Haha, Taoist illusion god, innate beasts are history. You, a beast from ancient times, should have met your tribulation long ago. Today, I'll send you to meet your tribulation. With a laugh, Feng Zichen waved the Zichen sword. Brilliant sword light burst out, and the sun, moon, and stars appeared. They split into 3 lights, forming a boundless starry sky that enveloped the illusion god. This was the Trinity sword scripture, heavenly sword. In the starry sky, each star represented a great Tao, containing supreme sword chi. One after another, they bombarded the illusion god, constantly wearing down his power. The illusion god was already seriously injured, so how much innate origin could he have left? Not long after, his innate origin was burned out, and his power continued to decline. He was gradually unable to withstand the impact of the stars. Ah, I'm not willing. The illusion god roared unwillingly. His eyes were filled with despair, and he looked at Feng Zichen with hatred, as if he wanted to remember him in his heart. Finally, with a boom, the illusion god detonated the last of his origin, blowing up the heavenly sword and turning himself into ashes. Only a connate, undying true spirit was left, wrapped in the worldly mirror, floating in the chaos. Humph, you want to resurrect after dying in the chaos. You're dreaming. Feng Zichen waved his hand and grabbed the illusion god's connate, undying true spirit. The illusion god had exploded, and the will above the true spirit had also disappeared. It would take a long time for it to recover. Therefore, Feng Zichen was able to easily get him. Hongmeng Dao restriction seal. He pointed at the Hongmeng Daozhong, and Hongmeng energy fell. It turned into runes of the great Tao and cut off the connection between the illusion sovereign's true spirit and the outside world, not giving him the opportunity to absorb any power, completely cutting off his path of resurrection through the true spirit. After that, Feng Zichen casually tossed the illusion sovereign's true spirit into the chaos, allowing it to drift forward aimlessly along with the chaos energy, gradually getting lost. In this way, if the illusion lord wants to revive, he can only rely on the imprint on the world's origin energy to nurture a new true spirit. However, this will take a long time. Let's wait until the illusion, revered God, reappears. I reckon that even the calamity of the journey to the west has passed. In fact, even Feng Zichen had no idea how long it would take to nurture a Daluo Jingxian innate true spirit. But he knew one thing. Since the creation of the world by Pangu, he had never heard of a Daluo Jingxian true spirit that had been destroyed returning from death. From this, it could be seen that it was not easy to rely on the world's origin energy to revive. The time needed was definitely unimaginably long. This mirror is extraordinary. The myriad phenomena of the mortal world enchant the mind and make people forget to return. The 5 turbid energies destroy the tranquility of people and destroy the fruit of Tao. This mirror can be both demonic and Buddhist. It's extremely strange. Playing with the red dust mirror, Feng Zichen fell into deep thought as he felt the qi of red dust and 5 turbid qi on it. This mirror reminded him of the demonic path and the Buddhist path of later generations. The function of this treasure overlapped with the philosophy of the 2 sections. If it fell into the hands of the 2 sects, it would definitely be another supreme treasure. That's not right. It's the will of heaven that this treasure fell into my hands. Suddenly, Feng Zichen thought of something that made him feel refreshed. He understood the significance of the mortal mirror to him. When it came to the myriad phenomena of the mortal world, it was inevitable that there would be joy, anger, sorrow, joy, love, hatred, and hatred. All the worlds of the mortal world were caused by the 7 emotions and 6 desires. Only the 7 emotions and 6 desires could perform the boundless mortal world. And Feng Zichen had established the incense divine path. Over the years, he had collected a lot of the 7 emotions and 6 desires. He really couldn't throw it away or use it, so he had always kept it in the chaos bead. This qi was so powerful that it would be a pity to throw it away. However, when this thing was used, it couldn't distinguish between friend and foe. When fighting with an enemy, he was afraid that he would hurt himself first before he could hurt the enemy. Therefore, before he found a way to activate this qi, Feng Zichen had no intention of using it, so he simply put it aside. Perhaps it was because he had become a Daluo Jingxian and his vision had improved. When he saw the mortal mirror today, Feng Zichen suddenly had an idea and thought of a wonderful idea. Why not fuse the qi of the 7 emotions and 6 desires with the mortal mirror? In this way, after the God-confirmed tribulation, the incense divine path would prosper. He could use the mortal mirror to receive the qi of the 7 emotions and 6 desires contained in the incense of all living beings. Not only could this move allow Feng Zichen to activate the qi of the 7 emotions and 6 desires, but it could also greatly increase the power of the mortal mirror. It could also add a treasure to the incense divine path to suppress fate. It could be said to be killing 3 birds with 1 stone. No, the use of this treasure was not only that. The mortal world was the mortal world, and it was also the sea of suffering. If Buddhism were to prosper in the future, Feng Zichen could disguise himself and use the name of helping everyone out of the sea of suffering to join the Buddhist sect and become a Buddha. If the demon sect were to prosper, Feng Zichen could also transform into a supreme heart demon, control the 7 emotions and 6 desires, and play with people's hearts. With this, it would be more than enough to join the demon sect and become a giant demon. With so many backup plans all of a sudden, even with Feng Zichen's current state of mind, he couldn't help but be moved. Even if he couldn't use these identities now, he could still use them as aliases to cover for his main body and provide help. It was just like opening an alternate account in a game. It might not be used normally, but it could be of great use at critical moments. Moreover, How could relying on outsiders compare to relying on oneself? It seems that I have to find an opportunity to open more alternate accounts as aliases. Perhaps one day in the future, there would be his aliases among the major forces of the primordial world, rising to the top and becoming the ruler. At that time, he would be able to do whatever he wanted in the primordial world. Such a scene was very beautiful, just thinking about it. At the same time, Feng Zichen believed that there would definitely be Daluo Jingxian who would do so. After all, unless it was a last resort or they had the confidence to win, a battle at the level of Daluo would not engage in a life-and-death battle. Most of the time, they were still scheming against each other. With tens of thousands of years as a unit, they were constantly setting up arrangements to either force their opponents into a desperate situation or lead them into a desperate situation. At this time, the benefits of having an alternate account were reflected. Often at critical moments, unexpected people would jump out and give the other party a fatal blow. A shocking reversal was completed. Chapter 212. If Feng Zichen could think of the benefits, the mighty figures of the primordial world would naturally not think of them. Perhaps there were many Daluo Jingxian in the primordial world who were secretly opened by the mighty figures. Feng Zichen took out the qi of 7 emotions and 6 desires and sent it into the mortal mirror. Then he threw them aside and stopped paying attention to them. Both of them were rare treasures. It would take a lot of time to completely fuse them. Coincidentally, Feng Zichen could take this time to calm down and organize what he had obtained recently. Boom! Boom! One day, 2 loud sounds suddenly came from the chaos, waking Feng Zichen up from his seclusion. He couldn't help but release his spiritual will to look around. He saw 2 connate numinous treasures overflowing with spiritual light in front of him. They were the yin-yang Tao embryo and the tripartite Tao embryo. Connate yin-yang lock. Connate tripartite diagram. After taking the 2 connate numinous treasures, Feng Zichen sized them up for a moment and couldn't help but reveal a satisfied expression. First, it was baptized by the great Tao and then nurtured by the chaos qi, causing the essence of the 2 to improve significantly. Once it was born, it was a superior grade connate numinous treasure with 34 connate divine restrictions. It was much stronger than Zichen's sword. However, not long after, Feng Zichen obtained 24 sea-calming divine pearls from Xianqing. Zichen's sword and chaos bead would be able to advance. After the postnatal reversal of the connate, the potential of Zichen's sword increased. Its path of advancement could be said to be smooth. As long as there was enough connate origin, it would definitely not be a problem to advance to a supreme grade connate numinous treasure. Perhaps this was the reward given by the great Tao to the first postnatal numinous treasure to reverse the connate. Rumble. With a wave of his hand, Feng Zichen sent the connate yin-yang lock and the connate tripartite diagram into the chaos array and fused with the corresponding Tao diagram. Immediately, the chaos array changed again. The great Tao array diagram became clearer and clearer. The power of the great Tao descended, producing laws and realm walls, causing the entire array to become more stable, as if it was about to turn into an independent small world. At the same time, all kinds of connate qi in the array boiled and transformed into connate divine light, sweeping across the surroundings. What was even more shocking was that behind the innate divine lights, one could faintly see the figures of innate fiend gods moving about as if they were about to cross through time and space to descend upon this place. Connate god fiend. That says connate god fiend's shadow of the god fiend's connate god fiend. This will suppress all's connate attention, as Feng Zichen saw its future through the vision of the chaos array, and he could not help but feel shocked. divine connate, divine gods, divine divines. Billions of divine lights shot out at the same time. Even a golden immortal would fall. The connate god, as divine be experts. But this was still not the chaos array's strongest state. When the connate 10 Tao diagrams were gathered and the great Tao divine diagram was completely formed, it would attract the power of the great Tao. The chaos array could probably compete with primordial chaos Daluo Jinxian. Only then could it be called a top array formation in the primordial world. Zhouxing array, 12 divine wraith array, and immortal slaying sword array were the 3 great array formations. The reason why they were ranked in the top 3 of the primordial world was because they had the power to fight against saints. This was also why the other connate arrays were inferior to them in the primordial world. Only the connate arrays that could fight against saints could be considered the strongest, as expected of an array formation born from the chaos. It's indeed powerful. When the array is completed, the 3 great array formations of the primordial world will become 4 great array formations. Feng Zichen was very confident in the power of the chaos array. How could the array formation that accompanied the chaos treasure be weak? The chaos array that he had set up now was only a simplified version of the original array. Its power had long been weakened layer by layer. Even so, the great primal chaos array was still so powerful. It was hard to imagine how powerful the original great primal chaos array was. According to the original structure of the chaos array, it should be a chaos treasure that complemented the 9 chaos spirit treasures. Once activated, it could summon the incarnation of the great Tao and sweep through everything. However, Feng Zichen couldn't even gather 9 superior grade connate spirit treasures, let alone 9 chaos spirit treasures. Facing the real chaos array, he could only think about it. He didn't even have extravagant hopes. I'm really looking forward to it. I wonder what kind of storm will the complete chaos array cause when it appears in the primordial world. With a sigh, Feng Zichen waved his hand at the chaos array and put away all the treasures. He turned around and walked towards the door of the end. Everything was over. It was time to go back. Staying in the chaos, I can't feel the passage of time at all. I don't know how much time has passed since I left the primordial world. In front of the door of the end, Feng Zichen couldn't help but feel a little nervous. He couldn't figure out how much time had passed in the primordial world. It could be just a moment, or it could be directly to the age of gods. In short, everything was possible. I hope my luck isn't too bad. After saying this, as if he was praying, Feng Zichen took a step forward and activated the merit of creation in his sea of consciousness. Immediately, the aura of the great Tao filled the air. A dense purple light bloomed from his forehead and shone on the door of the end, illuminating it. Feng Zichen relied on Panga's aura to open the door of the end and leave the primordial world. However, in the chaos, he realized that Panga's aura would affect his future, so he completely wiped it out, leaving nothing behind. In this way, without Panga's aura, it wouldn't be so easy for Feng Zichen to open the door of the end again. However, this matter wasn't difficult for him. Without Panga's aura, Feng Zichen still had the merit of creation. This item was a reward given to Pangu by the great Tao. It was connected to his aura and had endless mysteries. It was even more useful than Panga's aura. Opening the door of the end couldn't be easier. Sure enough, under the illumination of the merit of creation, the door of the end slowly opened a crack. Seeing this, Feng Zichen's figure swayed and returned to the primordial world through the crack of the door. 10,000 years? Fortunately, it's not too long. It's still within the acceptable range. It's not a big problem. From the aura he left behind, Feng Zichen deduced the time. He left this time and couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. 10,000 years was not too long for the current primordial world. It wouldn't affect anything. Moreover, after calculating, he had stayed in the chaos for more than 100,000 years, let alone 10,000 years. The extra tens of thousands of years made up for the shortcoming of his cultivation time. It could be seen that his luck was not bad. However, after returning to the end, Feng Zichen no longer had the power to control everything. He couldn't help but feel a little disappointed. Chapter 213. Sitting cross-legged, Feng Zichen calmed his mind and focused. He mobilized the power of the Sword Tao in his body, intending to take advantage of this opportunity to condense the Khanate Sword Tao in one go and lick the Khanate Tao for the primordial world. Oh, right, there's another opportunity here. Without any warning, a memory suddenly appeared in Feng Zichen's mind, reminding him of the strange place he saw at the bottom of the Void of End. He had planned to put this matter aside and investigate it after condensing the Khanate Sword Tao. However, that memory kept echoing in his mind, causing him to be uneasy and unable to calm down to cultivate. At the same time, an inexplicable consciousness appeared and seemed to whisper in Feng Zichen's ear, urging him to head to the bottom of the Void of End. This is Heavenly Tao revelation. With a thought, Feng Zichen understood the reason. Anyone with a great opportunity would be favored by the Heavenly Tao. Every time they arrived at a treasure land, they would be able to obtain a revelation from heaven and earth and obtain 1 or 2 treasures. As a result, they would not return empty-handed. It was somewhat similar to the situation he was currently encountering. I really didn't expect that the Heavenly Tao's revelation, the top treatment of the primordial world, would actually happen to me. However, why would there be treasures that are fated with me in the Void of End? Frowning, Feng Zichen was puzzled. No one was allowed to approach the Void of End. The great Tao was extinct and the creation did not exist. What treasures could be born? Moreover, it could be related to him. Let's go. Since the Heavenly Tao had given a revelation, it meant that there was no danger and it was a pure opportunity. At that moment, Feng Zichen did not condense the Khanate Sword Tao. With a flash, he rushed towards the bottom of the Void of End. TSK. The Void of End is indeed the garbage dump of the primordial world. There's really everything. On the way, Feng Zichen noticed the surroundings and felt a little uncomfortable. This place was filled with viscous liquid of various colors. It was constantly squirming and emitted waves of foul stench. Upon closer inspection, one could see many broken limbs floating in the Void of End, constantly being dissolved by the sticky liquid. It was extremely disgusting. Suppressing the discomfort in his heart, Feng Zichen increased his speed and arrived at the bottom of the Void of End in a flash. Why is this place so clean? This is beyond my expectations. At the bottom of the sinkhole, Feng Zichen looked at the empty void in front of him and could not help but be surprised. According to his estimation, after so many years of sedimentation, the environment at the bottom of the ultimate should be even worse than the environment above. However, when they arrived here, not to mention trash, even the final energy was nowhere to be seen. There must be something fishy going on. The situation here is so strange. It's better to be careful. Although the Heavenly Tao's revelation was not dangerous, this was the sinkhole. It could isolate the Heavenly Tao's perception. The Heavenly Tao's predictions might not be accurate here. Who knows what would happen if he walked down the path carelessly with that thought in mind? Feng Zichen took out the primal chaos bead and released strands of primal chaos chi to protect himself before he carefully walked down. Nothing happened. Is this place really that safe? After circling the bottom of the sinkhole, Feng Zichen did not sense any danger, nor did he see anything happen. I was wrong. There really isn't any danger here. But where's my opportunity? After walking around again, Feng Zichen confirmed that there was no danger here. It was empty everywhere, and it did not look like a primordial land at all. Of course, he did not discover the opportunity foretold by the heavenly Tao. It's really strange. This place is empty. There's nothing here. Where did the opportunity come from? Could it be that the heavenly Tao sensed wrongly? But how can the heavenly Tao be wrong? After scanning the surroundings, Feng Zichen still did not find anything. He could not help but secretly guess. It shouldn't be. With doubts in his heart, Feng Zichen squatted down and knocked on the ground with the primal chaos bead. With this knock, a sudden change occurred. The entire ground began to collapse. Primal chaos qi surged up, revealing a huge space. I was wondering why I couldn't find it. So there's another level below. Feng Zichen smiled and entered the space below. He was clad in a robe made of natural virtues, with a primordial bell floating above his head. He held the chaos bead in his left hand and the purple imperial sword in his right. Anything related to primal chaos that could remain until today without being transformed by the primordial land was not simple. It was never too much to be careful. This is Chaos Fiend God. There's actually a Chaos Fiend God at the bottom of the ultimate. How? How is this possible? How did he survive Panga's attack? After dispersing the surrounding primal chaos chi and seeing the scene in front of him clearly, Feng Zichen could not help but take a few steps back in shock. It was a huge figure. It was big in concept, big in the Great Tao. It was boundless, and it was unknown how big it was. The aura of the Great Tao surged around it. It was surrounded by purple gas, and it looked noble. It sat quietly on the ground, emitting a powerful aura as if it could suppress all Taos. Its eyes were wide open, releasing a terrifying, murderous intent. It was incomparably cold and intimidating. Feng Zichen looked into its eyes, which was why his mind was stirred, and he could not help but step back. He who had a lot of contact with Chaos Fiend gods knew at first glance that it was a Chaos Fiend god. It was the strongest, noblest, and most perfect life known in the world. Phew, it's just a corpse. That gave me a fright. After a while, the Chaos Fiend god was still sitting on the ground, motionless. Feng Zichen was curious, so he walked forward and sized it up for a moment. Only then did he realize that although the Chaos Fiend god's aura was powerful, it had no signs of life. What was left here was just a corpse. There was a bloody hole in between its eyebrows. That was its fatal wound. At this time, there was still blood flowing out with divine light. It was very extraordinary. Under Daluo Jingxian, anyone who touched it would die. What a great creation! After confirming that the Chaos Fiend god had completely fallen, Feng Zichen was so excited that he almost jumped up. The Chaos Fiend god was the incarnation of the Great Tao. Their bodies were the appearances of the Great Tao. They were the images of the Great Tao in the world. A complete Chaos Fiend god's body was equivalent to a complete Great Tao. It could also be said that it was a primordial Chaos Tao fruit. As long as it was devoured and refined, one could master a connate Great Tao and become a primordial Chaos Daluo Jingxian. What a great fortune this was! There might not be a second one in the untainted land. Therefore, one could imagine how excited Feng Zichen was. Not to mention him. Even if a sage came, he could not remain calm. With excitement, Feng Zichen came to the Chaos Fiend god and was about to devour it. However, as soon as he touched the Chaos Fiend god's body, he found that something was wrong. You're tuning in to the Thunder Spear YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.